So they're showing APG on PTUK. Is that what they're? Hey, everybody. Hey, if you're watching, I'm Captain Jeff from the Airline Pilot Guy Show, which is a superior podcast to this whatever you're watching right now, which is just disgusting and pitiful.
Stop watching that awful show.
Don't. Look, you're wasting your time. Don't you have something better to do on a Friday than to watch this show?
Exactly right. It's sad people. Friday
Very
night,
sad.
you just finished work.
Absolutely pathetic, just have
and you're watching that show.
You should be able to. You should be having a pint.
Yeah. You should be
having
a pint and a pie. And there you are, sitting at home, sadly sipping a glass of wine and watching PTUK.
Watching YouTube. Dreadful. I mean, what a waste of time. Waste
Go
of
get
time.
some good Indian food, or Thai food over there in England. I mean,
get
really,
out of the world. Get out, see the world.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Just
get on an airplane.
Right
Go fly
see
somewhere.
Have a good day. Yeah.
Click on the button. Get out of here.
And see ya.
You're listening to the Plane Talking UK podcast, the UK-based podcast written by a passenger for anyone. And here are your hosts, Carla Stebbings, Matt Smith and Neville Bounds.
Well, hello and welcome to episode number 184 of the Plane Talking UK podcast. I'm Carl Stebbings, and joining me this week in the kitchen studio, as always, is my co-host, Matt Smith.
Hello, everyone. Hello. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you, Matt?
Yes, not too bad. Not too bad at all. It's been a busy week in the world of Matt.
It's been a busy week.
Yeah, it has.
It's been a busy night for these people in the chat room. They've just sat through a 3.5
hour
APG.
spectacular. Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
yes,
it's like the Christmas special all over again.
Indeed. So we shall try to keep ours efficiently
within 4
punctual
hours
and under 4 hours. Yes, that's the only thing I can promise at this stage. Is it'll be under 4 hours.
So our other co-host of the show,
Yes.
Neville Bounds.
Yes.
Neville Bounds. He is unfortunately unable to be with us.
I have a theory about this because he claims that he's gone to some AV awards. I think he's officially picking up his knighthood. That's what I reckon. I think he's actually at the Palace receiving exactly
He's
that.
probably been flown there by BA in first class, obviously.
Right, okay, yeah. Amana's asking, what are you drinking, Carlos?
Oh, it's orange squash. It's nothing amazing.
No, I know.
No.
But it is, if it helps, it's in a Doom Bar
yeah, it's in a Doom Bar glass.
Yeah,
So Neville can't be with us, so he does apologise for not being able to be with us. But like Matt said, he's at an AV Awards, Audio-Visual Awards ceremony somewhere in
picking up
in
many gongs, I have no doubt.
Yes.
Yeah, indeed.
But we do have a special guest joining us on the show tonight. He's an avid aviation photographer. He's also a listener of the show.
Ooh.
Can't see why.
Really?
I don't know why he does that.
I know. We all have our cross to bear.
I know.
Yeah.
So we're going to welcome onto the show his first ever appearance on the show, then a live show, and Mark Harvey. Hello, Mark.
Hello, and thank you for the invite.
A pleasure.
That's a pleasure.
Of course, a few weeks back, we actually played out something that you sent us, didn't we? I think it was it at...
your feedback you sent us.
RF Norton, yes.
That's it,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that was really, we thoroughly enjoyed that, and so did the listeners, Mark, so well done.
We were both officially redundant.
Yeah.
I hardly think so.
I know, it's good. He even asked the right question at the end there. It's like,
you
could fly anything you wanted to. I know. We're going to have to change that question. It's no good. We're too predictable.
I know. So whereabouts in the wonderful world are you then, Mark?
I'm in the sunny southwest, down in Cornwall.
Lovely part
in the UK.
Yeah.
Lovely part of the country.
It is. What's the weather been like down there? Because it's not been great up here, I have to be honest.
It was a bit grey to start with, but the sun poked through, and it's not too bad now, and I'm hoping it's going to stay like that for the weekend.
Yes, I did hear rumours that the UK's going to have a bit of a rough weekend, I think, weather-wise, certainly come Sunday.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yes.
Tail end of a certain hurricane.
Something or other.
Yeah.
Bob or something.
Yeah.
Hurricane.
Was it? No, what
Jim,
is it?
It's
Hurricane Maria, isn't it?
Oh, Maria.
Yeah, that's
okay,
it.
I knew it was something like that.
So one of my friends is actually a weather reporter, and he started his late night bulletin with one of the most abysmal jokes I've ever heard in my entire life. It's just like, and what do you do when you've got a hurricane, something about Maria? I was just like, oh, that's it. You're no longer my friend.
They're going to get to the end of the alphabet. And
this is it.
Mystery,
especially this year. Absolutely.
Hurricane xylophone.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
I think it's usually ladies' names, if I'm honest.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So Mark,
there's got to be a joke in there somewhere.
We're going to have a chat with you later. You do a bit of photography of the aviation persuasion, don't you?
I do. I try and get a few shots. I try and do a few air shows each year. This year's been a bit sparse.
Yeah.
But I've got plenty of back catalogue to get through yet.
Awesome. We'll have a chat with you about that later, won't we?
Yeah,
see
we
what air shows you've attended this year. 'Cause
Yeah,
that'd be nice,
absolutely.
wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, there was definitely one at Bryce Norton. I know that.
There was definitely one there.
Yeah.
I want to go there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've got loads of people in the chat room as always joining us this evening, which is awesome because they have been, like I said, listening to APG for
They
ages,
have, yes.
and hopefully you'll all stick with us for this show. We've got Myla, Liz Piper, Jonathan Warner is in the chat room. We've got Philip Davis, and we've got Shorty Cosgrove, and more Mark Harvey's in the chat room.
Yes, who? Yeah.
Lane Street, Richard King, Jeff Braithwaite, Nick Anderson's in the chat room as well. At the moment, so we better be on our best behaviour.
He does need to lie down, bless him. He's on a full marathon. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but he'll probably be asleep by the end of the show.
I dare say. Yes.
So thanks to everyone for joining us this evening. We've got loads of news and stuff to get through. We've also got a great segment coming up from Pilot Pip, who sent a really, really good segment in for us to play on the show later on, which is all about flying in Russia.
Yeah, so it's all about and of course it's his last.
And it's his last flight on the Hawker. He's quite upset about that. Yeah. And we also do have a segment as well this week from Nev.
Yes.
Even though he's not here, he sent us a great little segment.
That's because he's very efficient, you see, and he does segments months and months in advance. You see,
he's good. Yeah, that's with Michele Robson. So stay tuned for that. That's coming up towards the end of the show.
Yeah, she was the one that turning left for less, wasn't she? She's the one who does that podcast. Yeah. But at the same time, he took full advantage and also did a Nev's passenger experience with her while he had hold, as it were.
He's good.
So,
I'll tell you.
Absolutely. Very efficient. Better than the rest of us, eh?
That's why we pay him the millions.
Yes, absolutely. He's worth every cent.
I know.
Yeah,
I know.
Absolutely. Literally cent. Yeah.
Cents, yeah. Cents or pounds?
No, cents.
No, the exchange rate's rubbish at the moment.
Oh, is it? All right.
No, not dollars.
Okay, right.
So we're going to start the show then, as we do each week, with our rundown of the weekly news from around the world and the UK. So if you're ready, Matt.
I am, yes.
And if you're ready, Mark.
Yes, I'm ready.
Let's go. So, kicking off this week's first news story then. This one is on the posh newspaper. It's the Telegraph.co.uk. And the headline is Battle of the Budget Airlines. So, Norwegian is poaching Ryanair pilots, apparently. Or are its passengers next? So, Ryanair has been the airline on everyone's lips, as we all know, for the last few weeks, with the carrier fighting for its reputation amid the chaos of cancelling over 315,000 bookings. But one of the rumoured to spark the meltdown by luring all its pilots away. I did hear this actually in a story on during the week actually about them pilots being pinched from Ryanair. But Norwegian is perhaps best known in the UK for its headline-grabbing fares to the US, Argentina and Singapore, and they can do New York for 60 quid as well. But last week it was in the news again as experts suggested it had exacerbated Ryanair's messing up of its holiday staff and all the holidays thing schedule by poaching 140 of the Irish Airlines pilots in just 1 year.
Wow.
This week, Norwegian further established itself as part of the British aviation furniture when its UK subsidiary was granted permission to fly transatlantic flights. So whose is exactly the airline which started life in Western Norway in 1993, and does it have the brains and brawn to knock Ryanair from its perch? Today, the third largest low-cost carrier in Europe, behind Ryanair and EasyJet, Norwegian, or Norwegian Air Shuttle as it was previously known, began running a regional service between cities on the west coast of Norway before expanding in 2002 to operate its first UK route, Stavanger to Newcastle. By 2007, Norwegian was operating out of Warsaw as well as Bergen, and it had 42 Boeing 737s on order. Norwegian grew and grew, announcing its long-haul intentions in 2009 before setting up a base at London Gatwick in 2013, from where it now flies to a host of US cities as well as Singapore and Buenos Aires. So obviously they've got you can't really see on here. It's on if you're on the YouTube video, you might be able to see if Matt pops it up. But it's a picture anyway. It shows the destinations that Ryanair and Norwegian fly to. Norwegian obviously have their long haul destinations and stuff in the US, unlike Ryanair. But the story does go on. It's obviously Norwegian is quite a competitor for the low cost flights, especially across to the US. They're offering flights from Gatwick for around about £245 plus £40 for a 20 kilo piece of luggage. This is Norwegian's offering from Gatwick to, doesn't actually say, for Copenhagen. Another spot check on a long weekend in Copenhagen for late November. They're offering flights again from Gatwick, return flights to Copenhagen from London Gatwick for £71.20 with no luggage. The same fare with Ryanair costs just £50, so they're a little bit cheaper there, Ryanair, than Norwegian there. But obviously, as we said, Norwegian have this long haul kind of part and stuff on, for their
Was it Norwegian that they were talking about doing some possible it wasn't Norwegian that they were going to be feeding into their long haul network, was it?
No.
Who was that I'm thinking of? I can't remember now.
Well, the story says here that they asked the question, do Ryanair and Norwegian get on? Well, it says not quite here by the story. The Irish Airlines' historic rivalry has always been Aer Lingus, obviously, the country's flag carrier, while its relationship with EasyJet has always been comparatively professional. But Norwegian's CEO Bjorn Kjos and Ryanair's Michael O'Leary have recently developed a fair bit of shared animosity. But obviously things have not been too great for Ryanair this week.
No, indeed. And we'll move on to story number 2, which sort of I think is the best way to describe a headline. In fact, actually, I've had a couple of great stories, one of which was sent to me by a couple of listeners, and it was... it's not been a good week for them, has it, really? Let's be honest. William Hardcastle, he sent me one which was really interesting over this whole deadline, wasn't it, with the whole CAA thing. Which I'll come to in a minute. But the story I've got in front of me here is actually more because obviously we are all about the passenger, and so if you are experiencing issues in regard to your Ryanair flight, the Daily Post has information that must be adhered to. So this is what Ryanair passengers should do if their flight has been cancelled. Ryanair has been warned by the Civil Aviation Authority that it has until 5 p.m. today to meet its obligations. Obviously that deadline has now passed. The budget airline has been instructed to tell passengers that they are entitled to be rerouted within another flight operator and explain how to do so. The carrier must also publicly confirm that it will reimburse expenses accrued as a result of the cancellation, something Ryanair has failed to do. In addition to this, they have been told that they must commit to helping passengers who chose an unsuitable option as a result of being misled. Thousands of passengers have been affected by the last-minute cancellation of flights, which came about after it was revealed the airline had messed up pilot holiday rosters. The demands come after the regulators accused the airline of not complying with the law over its handling fiasco. The regulator has asked for a meeting with the airline as part of a consultation that will last at least 7 days and could take legal action for breaching customer protection laws. It says Ryanair has falsely claimed it did not have to reroute passengers on other airlines, particularly when no other services were available. The CAA has also accused the airline of stopping short of providing details on its obligations to refund additional expenses incurred by passengers as a result of cancellations, including for meals, hotels and transfer costs. The CAA chief executive Andrew Haynes said that he was furious after Ryanair cancelled an extra 18,000 flights for the winter season on Wednesday, a move that will hit 400,000 customers. He said that it was that there are clear laws in place which are intended to assist passengers in the event of a cancellation, helping minimise both the frustration and inconvenience caused by circumstances completely out of their control. We have made this crystal clear to Ryanair, who are well aware of their legal obligations, which includes how and when they should reroute passengers, along with the level of information it provides to its passengers. The information Ryanair published today, again, fails to make this clear. In expediting our enforcement action, we are seeking to ensure that Ryanair customers will receive the correct and necessary information to make an informed choice about an alternative flight. I mean, I can go on. Obviously, it's pretty clear. It's a very bitter story.
Been a very news.
The only thing I'm going to say, if I may, against this is something that's just been brought to my attention again by one of our listeners. And actually, as a counterclaim to that, Ryanair has now called upon the UK CAA to now require UK airlines to comply with these EU 261 obligations, which the CAA did not apply to British Airways in May this year, when a computer meltdown stranded hundreds of thousands of British citizens stroke visitors at London Heathrow and many other airports, with no apparent action taken by the CAA in respect of reaccommodation or enforcement against British Airways. So they haven't messed around really in coming back with what I can only describe as a counter argument for that, which I guess is not to be expected. I should just stress that information came from the Ryanair website directly that I was just reading out there. So
Mark, what are you a user of Ryanair? Have you been a user of Ryanair in the past?
I can't say that I've had that dubious pleasure. I don't actually do an awful lot of commercial flying. I don't do a lot of flying at all, really. I tend to stand around with the camera more.
Yeah.
Amen. But they do fly out of Newquay occasionally. They did stop for a while when Newquay put the airport duty or airport passenger tax on departing passengers. But once Newquay took that off, they have now returned. And I'm watching some of the places they're going because it does make flying very affordable. Yeah. And I'm possibly going to take advantage of that when I can.
Yeah, it's a funny one, isn't it? I mean, there's no two ways about it. This has been a monumental cock-up, hasn't it? I mean, it's just you don't.
One of those.
One of those. Yeah, it is. There is no way that you know that. I'm surprised, given what I know about Ryanair and their scheduling, which is, to be honest, so rigorous. Certainly when it comes to cabin crew, I'm just amazed that such a screw-up has been made, if you like, in regard to pilots and their time off. Now, I think there is this, as I say, there is this grey area, I think, which I mentioned last week, where it was because they're having to move the calendar, and that's what's causing so many of the problems. But I genuinely don't. I honestly don't think. I mean, in a year's time, everybody will have forgotten about this.
I know.
And it will just be.
Do you know?
Everybody will be doing exactly what everybody's been doing.
I was literally
before.
just going to say that, Matt. You know, give this another. I don't know. Give us another 2 or 3 weeks, and it'll be gone. It'll be,
absolutely.
It'll be.
I think it'll be longer than 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
Especially if the CAA have now got involved, and there's going to be weeks of white papers going backwards and forwards and stuff. Now.
I just think it'll just be a non-story in a few weeks.
Yeah,
time.
I mean, it obviously is very sad because it's like 400,000 passengers are about to be inconvenienced by this.
I think I read a report earlier on the week. So far, it cost Ryanair £22 million.
But let's be honest. I mean, to Ryanair, that's just a drop in the ocean, isn't it? I mean,
sorry, euros.
Euros, yes, thank you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's really not going to make a great deal of difference in the grand scheme of things. I, as the rather cynical amongst myself, was actually myself and a friend of mine. Well, not so much me, but my friend is rather prone to sort of watching or playing the stock market, shall we say? And he's done quite well out of it. And I actually said to him when these stories started breaking, you ought to start watching the Ryanair price actually and see what happens. And I texted him today because he's been watching the trends, and I said, what's happened to it? And the Ryanair price has literally not moved at all in all of this. So it's like the shareholders are not nervous about this at all. This is obviously just a blip that will sort itself out and go away. I mean, I don't know. I feel for the families, as I said, that have been involved, and because it is a cheap way of getting somewhere, and people's holidays over the Christmas period will now be either not possible or more expensive. But
it's actually at close of business today, Matt. It's actually gone up by
it's gone up.
It was 104 $104.05 US. It says here on this website, and it's up 2.46 or 2.42%. Oh, it's just gone up. It's just gone up again. Yeah. Whilst I'm reading this story.
Okay. Well, so it's fair to say investors are not nervous about what's going on. I think that's the best way to describe it.
Ryanair stock's definitely not going anywhere.
No, indeed. Yeah.
No. So the next story. Moving on. We're going to get away from the Ryanair things.
Yes.
I think we've all heard enough about that. Week. So the next story is on the cityam.com website, and
it is.
It is. No, it's not. I'm just.
No,
do you know
it's
what
not.
I've just done?
No, it's on the star.com. I
It's
don't
on
know
the
what you're on
star.com.
about. And anyway, it doesn't matter.
That's because I've got
it's
it here.
Mark's story. It's fine.
It's Mark.
So, yeah,
Right,
so take it away, sir.
I've just clicked
You had me confused there.
Yeah.
Right. Right. You can now text friends and family for free aboard this airline. Wow, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Passengers flying select Delta Airlines flights will soon be able to send free text messages from 30,000 feet in the air. Delta has scooped up bragging rights to becoming the first US global carrier to offer free in-flight text messaging to their flyers beginning October the 1st. The service will be available via messaging platforms like iMessage, WhatsApp, and Facebook Messenger. Free messaging will be available on all Delta flights powered by GoGo Air, an in-flight internet provider. Delta's announcement is the latest development for in-flight connectivity this week. Netflix announced plans to extend bandwidth efficiency for mobile devices on airlines around the world beginning next year to make it more accessible for travelers and improve the viewing experience in flight. Netflix currently has partnerships with Virgin America, Qantas, Virgin Australia, Aeromexico, among others. Details on future airline collaborations have not yet been released.
Well,
it's all very good, but
it is. Yeah,
I think as long as it stays just the texting, I think that's not too bad. If it starts being the actual calls as well, there'll be a lot more complaints.
Yeah, I don't know. We've had this discussion before, though, haven't we? It's just like, can people really not unplug themselves from like communicating with other people on the ground for that couple of hours that you're in the air? You know, I mean, I suppose I can understand like in the business world, but then of course in the business world they can get online, do emails, communicate. And carry on working, you know, while they're in the business class section. That's fine, but can we really not bear to be texting our friends for a 5-hour flight? Can't we just look out the window and enjoy the view?
We have always said, Matt, that we'd love to do a live show from.
Is that really?
Yeah.
Is that our mission?
If bandwidth.
Okay. Right. I mean, I'd just like to sort of comment on that, if I may, Carlos. I mean, I get stressed enough as it is when we've got a dirty, great big satellite pointing at a tiny little satellite. You know, it just and I wet myself doing that. How the hell am I going to do it in the air?
But the story does say actually free text messages. So
yeah, you know, I don't know quite how that would work. I don't know quite how that would work unless you all had SIM cards or something in it, but. But then, unless they're talking about, cause I get very confused. Are they talking about SMS specifically, or are they talking about, say, like WhatsApp communication or something?
I think it was the WhatsApp type.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was the data messages rather than the actual SMS text messages.
Although I have to confess, I mean, I'm a little bit guilty because obviously during my flight to Pittsburgh, I was pestering all my friends while I was in the air, just because I got an hour's worth of free Wi-Fi, so I was sitting there pinging WhatsApps left, right, and centre. So it's I'll ignore everything I've just said. I'm worse than everyone else, but there we are. Anyway,
but a lot of the IFE systems in aircraft, Emirates and quite a few of the other airlines do it. The little handsets you pull out from the actual TVs in front of you, you can text other people in the aircraft by seat number. Yeah. So if your friend's sitting right at the back of the aircraft and you're right at the front in business, you can actually send them a message via the actual console, the actual seat you're sitting in.
Owen's arrived just in time.
Oh, has he?
Yeah.
Hello, Owen.
Hello, Owen. He's just like the chat room's busy going crazy because Owen's appeared.
Yeah.
So they've lost interest in us now.
Oh no,
that's it. That's all that's done.
So next story is on the what site is that?
I don't know. It's your site. Don't really look at it.
I bet even you can't read that website address.
I beg your pardon. Agassiz Harrison Observer.
Yeah, that's what I said.
AgassizHarrisonObserver.com.
Aye.
Yeah, indeed.
There we go.
Yeah.
So the headline on here then,
good luck.
It's yet another new airline that's coming on online. Ultra low cost airline set to swoop into BC. Canada's newest ultra low cost carrier could soon swoop into Abbotsford. On Wednesday, WestJet revealed the name and hot pink logo for its subsidiary Swoop. That's Sierra Whiskey Oscar Papa.
Right.
Swoop.
Okay, very good. Yes.
It will begin selling tickets for summer flights in February, according to Bob Cummins, WestJet's executive vice president responsible for the company's launch. Swoop will leverage WestJet's infrastructure and fly 10 787-800 planes with 189 seats each, Cummins said. A ticket will only buy a seat with an extra fee likely charged for luggage, priority seating, extra legroom, and even in-flight entertainment. You pay for exactly what you want and you will get value from, he said. Cummins will not confirm whether or not Swoop would be flying in and out of Abbotsford International Airport, or YXX, but it said it's a tremendous airport that fits very well with the ultra-low-cost carrier model. For competitive reasons, we won't be absolutely disclosing the cities and the network until our booking launch day in February in 2018, he said, but the airport's general manager seemed confident. It looks like Swoop will be in Abbotsford, said Palm Sidhu, the Abbotsford Airport's general manager. Sidhu said that his airport is perfectly suited to serve an ultra-low-cost carrier like Swoop, and anticipates it will get new people flying who aren't able to afford conventional airlines. He said he expects operations to take off in June 2018. WestJet, WestJet has studied the ultra-low-cost carrier model around the world, particularly in the US, Cummins said. And there, he said, bargain airlines like Spirit and Allegiant typically charge 50% less than Canadian Airlines for flights of the same distance. You won't see quite those levels of discounts from Swoop, but we're building a cost structure to get towards those kind of discounts and average fare levels that are quite substantially lower, and I'll say game-changing. Do you keep messaging me on WhatsApp?
No, I'm not.
That's the PTUK one. Anyway, so Swoop, a new airline. They've got a rather nice paint job, I will say. If you're a lover of pink, you'll definitely love Swoop's paint job on the aircraft. But it's good news, obviously, for people living in Canada, because you'll be able to.
Yeah, although actually, I have to say, Liz has just said in the chat room here at. Because she's saying I cannot see the ultra low cost carriers, Canadian Airlines, working, and so I have to confess I did ping a message and ask the question why, and she thinks that actually it's more to do with the fact that they just don't have the population and the distances involved are far too great, which I think is a possible concern. I mean that is a genuine issue. It's yeah, I don't know. And she's also saying, because they were talking about Jazz, you lose Jazz and then gain Swoop. But Liz is actually saying Jazz is still around. They're Air Canada's regional line. So it's it's, I don't know. I mean, does Liv have a? I'm sure she has a point, because she's a very intelligent lady. But she probably has a point, doesn't she? I mean, it's not like, because of the land masses involved. It's not like just in our case where we're popping to Ireland or whatever. I mean, you know, it's to go from one end of Canada to another is quite a major thing.
And to have more than one low cost carrier, because as you said, you've got Jazz and obviously this Swoop. Interesting name, Swoop. It doesn't really come off the
tongue.
No, tongue.
Yeah.
Easy.
Okay.
Swoop.
Yeah.
Swoop.
Okay.
Swoop.
Right. Good indeed. Anyway,
moving on.
Next
Next story.
All right. Yes, I suppose I better do that one, hadn't I? Yes, this is on the. I'm just waiting. Flight Global. Good old Flight Global. And the headline is JetBlue launches Airspace by Airbus cabin for A320. JetBlue Airways has agreed to be the launch customer in 2020 for the Airspace by Airbus cabin interior for the A320 family that features a central lighting strip, larger baggage bins, and a new lavatory design.
I know.
Very exciting stuff. The new interior will begin installations on JetBlue's A320 starting in 2020, when the New York-based carrier is scheduled to have around 70 aircraft left in backlog. Ingo Wukedza, who is the vice? Anyway, he's the vice president of cabin marketing for Airbus. Says on the 26th of September in an announcement ceremony at the Aircraft Interiors Expo. JetBlue currently has 102 A320 family aircraft in backlog, along with 176 A320s and A321s combined already delivered. Airbus began collaborating with JetBlue executives on the design of the new cabin months before the Airspace by by Airbus concept was unveiled last April at the Aircraft Interiors Expo in Hamburg, Germany. The chief executive has said Airbus plans to make the Airspace by Airbus cabin standard within 3 to 4 years of the entry into service with JetBlue in 2020. He adds, until then, Airbus will deliver aircraft with 2 types of cabins. A retrofit option for the Airspace by Airbus concept will become available in 2020 in parallel with the forward fit version, he adds. Meanwhile, the larger baggage bins developed for Airspace by Airbus will be introduced a year earlier in 2019. An undisclosed North American customer has ordered that particular feature. The bins are enlarged to handle 60% more bags, with each bag up to 40% larger than possible today. Now, I can think of several low-cost carriers who would probably be quite excited about having slightly larger bins.
There's not a lot on Airbus's website. If you go on to Airbus's website and try and look at the airspace, the part of that website is still under construction.
Still all a bit
quite
hush.
new.
Yes,
but you can Google some of the images from the kind of expo they done with Airspace, and Airbus had this big setup, mock-up cabin interior, and it's very much all to do with lighting, LED lighting. It's very the kind of lighting they've done a kind of similar thing that Boeing do with the mood lighting. So when you're flying, they can change the interior cabin lighting to reflect the time
whether
of the
you're
day,
eating or
and also there's a picture actually on if you Google Airspace cabin, there's actually a shot of one of these particular bins, overhead bins, and it's huge. It is huge. You could honestly get a quite reasonable sized hand luggage suitcase in there with no issues at all. So the cabin, it does look, I mean, the cabin interiors look so good, and if they can put this onto sort of mainline aircraft such as the 320,
brace yourselves, everyone. Captain Bell has arrived.
Oh, Rick Bell.
Yeah, absolutely.
Greetings, Rick.
Indeed. He says, hello, PT UK, he says.
Oh, hello, Rick.
So, yes. Right. Anyway, Mark, the next story is with you, please.
Yes, it is. This is on the Hertfordshire Mercury. And it's Emirates is recruiting commercial airline pilots at a Stansted Airport event.
Ooh.
High flyers in the airline industry could be heading for sunny Dubai following a pilot roadshow at Stansted Airport. The event is being held by the airline Emirates in a bid to recruit experienced and technically proficient commercial pilots. It will provide a chance to learn more about the recruitment process, talk to staff, and find out about living and working in Dubai. The event takes place at the Radisson Blu Hotel at Stansted Airport on Thursday, October the 5th at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Friday, October the 6th at 10 a.m. Interested pilots who are unable to attend the roadshow can also make an online application at www.emirates.com/pilots. Perks include a 28 days on, 13 days off roster pattern for freighter pilots, a tax-free salary, medical and dental insurance, annual leave, and company accommodation in Dubai. Emirates operates 6 services to Dubai a day from London Heathrow and 3 daily from London Gatwick.
Do you think they're just trying to sort of rub Ryanair's nose in it, possibly, by having a sort of a pilot recruitment drive at one of their biggest bases?
Actually, there wouldn't be anything like that in their mind at all.
No, I doubt it. Yeah, I mean, to be fair to them, they probably had this plan months and months and months and months ago before any of this actually kicked off. But you just
Emirates is, all jokes aside, Emirates is a huge airline, as we all know, and quite a few of the flights that we've taken with Emirates over the last few years, the pilots have been British pilots.
But do they actually, forgive my naivety here, and this is, but I didn't realise there was much Emirates stuff come out of Stansted. I thought they tended to be Heathrow.
I think this is just like a show.
I know, but it's a bit of a weird one. Is why Emirates would be doing a show perhaps at an airport which they don't normally use. Unless
interesting one there.
Yeah,
perhaps someone in the chat room will know.
Yeah,
they obviously will know.
They know everything. That's why we rely on them.
Perhaps they couldn't get anything near. Where did that come from? Perhaps they couldn't get anything near to Gatwick or Heathrow, so Stansted was the best option, I think.
Yes. Sorry, it's just your machine wants a restart. That's what it is.
Oh, is that? Oh, okay.
And I had the sound on from when we were simulcasting APG earlier. But
28 days on and 13 days off roster. Sounds good. Yeah, you get nearly 2 weeks off.
Sounds all right to
After
me.
28 days,
Yeah.
All the pilots will probably go, no, that's rubbish. That's rubbish.
Yes, absolutely.
But I do like I'll tell you what will appeal to a lot of people, I think, a tax-free salary.
I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
That does sound rather good.
Doesn't it? Yeah.
That does sound rather good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but if you look at a lot of the forum sites and stuff for the pilots now,
Presumably-
there are a lot of pilots who do learn to fly in the UK, and they do move
But presumably you have to
Emirates.
move to Dubai in order to benefit. You can't be based here in the UK and get the tax-free thing. That just opens up a whole can of worms.
That's why they all drive around in sports cars. out
Okay,
there.
moving on to the next story before we get sued. Carlos, this is with you.
So the next story then on the Mail on dailymail.co.uk.
Yes,
This one.
another quality newspaper.
It is quality, yeah. So the headline, going once, going twice. United Airlines, it's one of Brian's favourites, Mr. Coleman. United Airlines to launch auction programme allowing passengers to sell their seats on overbooked flights. United Airlines is set to launch a program allowing passengers to auction their seats on overbooked flights. A new interface will allow customers to enter how much compensation they expect in return for the inconvenience. News of the auction concept follows an incident in April which saw passenger David Dow forcibly dragged. We already know about that one. Force of a flight.
Really?
The incident grew global attention and controversy. The practice of
What was that then?
bumping,
Did I miss that?
whereby airlines prevent passengers from boarding flights after deliberately overbooking them to ensure all seats are filled in case some passengers fail to show up. Despite the flaw, United said it had almost 90% reduction of so-called involuntary denied boardings year over year since May the 1st. However, now the Chicago-based carrier is making further amendments to revive its public image. Travel expert Brian Summers tweeted that the new auction concept will launch by October the 3rd. That's not long from now.
No, next week.
He also shared an image showing what the landing page will look like. That's Brian Summers on Twitter. United isn't the first to launch such a program. Delta Airlines revealed a similar auction system several years ago.
Did they?
The airline takes bids via text messages and selects the lowest amounts until all passengers have been accommodated. The airline industry over the past year has been aggressively offering passengers compensation to give up their seats on overbooked planes in order to avoid public relation nightmares. Most recently, mother of three, Tracy Jarvis Smith, was compensated $4,000 to give her seat up on an overbooked Delta flight from Atlanta to South Bend, Indiana. She was able to fly out and land just 8 hours later than expected. Mail Online Travel is yet to receive a comment from United. $4,000?
Yeah.
Do you know, if I'd paid 400 quid for a flight and they offered me £1,000 to miss the flight,
yeah, I'd be all right with that.
I'd be quite happy with that.
Yeah. I did actually, because I know because obviously I was with United when we went out to Pittsburgh, and one of the things that they were actually saying is like on the machines when you go to sort of check in and stuff, and it was saying, one of the questions it asked you, well, would you be happy to be bumped onto a different flight if it didn't matter? And,
to which you pressed yes if it's in business class.
Yeah, well, no, but I mean, I wasn't so fussed about going. I wanted to get out there on the day, but actually on coming home, I did click the no. I'm quite happy to be bumped and fly home a different day, because I thought I don't mind if I have to stay another day. That's fine.
Yeah.
I was loving Pittsburgh. I really.
We
was.
love Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
You might have even had a different plane on the way back, so that it might have been a nicer experience.
Well, there is that. There is that to it. Yeah. Did I mention I don't like the 757?
Oh,
200?
poor Mark. I think he knows. He knows all
Did
about
that come up
it.
in conversation at all? Did I mention how it tried to nearly kill me?
What do you think of this seat bumping thing, Mark? Obviously, you say you don't fly commercially that often, but if you'd booked your flight on such an airline, let's just say, for instance, United, and they bumped you off, would you be upset at all?
With the auction system, I think it's a good idea, because if you really need to get somewhere to a deadline, you can either say no, or you can put something a very high value in and then go and buy something else on another airline.
Yeah, true.
If it was just straight bumped off when I was already sat on the plane, I would be rather upset.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
As we heard about earlier in the year.
Yeah.
That was
that was some
made for
stunning
interesting.
footage. That was, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So moving on to the next story, bit of a tech one for you, Matt. I picked this.
Is it right?
Yeah, picked this especially for you. This one.
So this is on the Fortune Travel website, and the headline is it's your guide to getting Wi-Fi on most major airlines. Being able to browse Facebook, email, and watch Netflix on flights has become more important than ever. But what's the best way to get Wi-Fi 1 planes? Wi-Fi 1 planes? What's a Wi-Fi 1?
Wi-Fi on. I think they put an E on there.
Oh,
they didn't
I
mean
see.
to.
I read it.
That journalism thing.
Oh, I see. We had some experts break down how to get. That's nice. We had some experts break down how to get the best deals before you take off. One company, travel bloggers Chris McGuinness and Edward Pizzarello, my apologies if that's badly pronounced, which it most likely is, suggested travellers familiarise themselves with GoGo, an in-flight Wi-Fi provider to American, Alaska, Delta, Virgin America and United Airlines. The most important thing a frequent traveller can do is buy GoGo passes on the ground instead of waiting until they get on the plane. Buying a day pass in advance costs just $19, while buying a full flight pass on a transcontinental flight can cost up to $50. Well, that's worth knowing. I need to stick that in the old memory banks. GoGo also offers a subscription plan for international flights at $69.95 a month. For domestic flights, they offer a $49.95 a month subscription plan as well. However, you'll need to fly more than 2 days each month to make the monthly cost of those plans worth it. Since there are a number of in-flight internet providers out there, Edward, editor of pizzainmotion.com, also suggests using the website Route Happy. Website Route Happy to see what is available on a specific flight. Some airlines like Spirit Airlines, Frontier Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines don't offer in-flight Wi-Fi, but for those major airlines that do, here's a breakdown of how to get the best Wi-Fi deal. So on American Airlines offers a $16 a day pass for domestic flights. However, Wi-Fi pricing for international airline flights goes up to $19 or $12 for 2 hours and $17 for 4 hours. Passengers can also purchase a $7 1 hour pass from GoGo that works on American Airlines flights. Now that is worth knowing. I need to stick that in the memory bank for when I go in November. Then I can pester you all with photographs.
Oh yeah,
because when I'm on my 767 this time. Wi-Fi is available on nearly all of their flights according to their website, and they noted that the American Airlines uses GoGo and a few other providers to power their Wi-Fi. Most GoGo powered Wi-Fi on American airline flights use their older cell tower technology, which provides around 9 megabits for the entire aircraft. However, more of the airlines flights are getting upgraded to GoGo's newer satellite-powered service, which provides 15 megabits per person. Flipping heck. Alaska Airlines. On Alaska Airlines flights, you can use GoGo's 1 hour pass, so I'll skip over that. So that's basically more or less the same. So again, if you're using the Alaska Airlines, my advice would be to buy the GoGo $16 day pass rather than on flight, which will cost you $36 if it's Alaska. Delta also use GoGo, so again it's $16, but it's $28 if you want to buy it in the air. JetBlue provides free Wi-Fi service on all planes. That's worth knowing. With rather impressive speeds of between 12 and 20 megabits per person. That's really good. Yeah. Southwest, they use a different service. It's one of the most affordable paid-for plans at $8 per device per day. The service is reasonably fast, though you can't stream movie services like Netflix or Amazon, but they do offer movies for rent on board at a price of just $5 each. United, again, so we're back to the GoGo service. So again, you're paying $16 to use their service. Virgin America, which is the last one, now they say that they also use GoGo's first generation Wi-Fi service. Like Alaska, they're beginning upgrades to the 2KU service in early 2018, according to this particular website. They also use Viasat on some aircraft. You can buy a pass-through GoGo if your plane uses its service for $19 for the day, or $7 for the pass. Service on Viasat-enabled planes ranges from $5 to $18, depending on the length of flight. Monthly and annual GoGo subscription members can use this flight service for free. Now, I must admit, if it was a long-haul flight, so if you are going transatlantic, I would quite happily pay $8 to be able to sort of do emails and chat to people while I'm in the air, to be honest, as long as I've got my headphones in and I'm not annoying anyone else.
I did put that into the chat room while you were reading the story to see what the chat room thought about having Wi-Fi on board.
Oh dear.
Glenn Towler, he said he would love to have Wi-Fi on board. He's waiting for Air New Zealand to sort that out on their aircraft. Liz Piper, Wi-Fi yes, cell calls no.
Right, yeah, I think that's...
in capital letters.
Yeah, that seems to be the general consensus, doesn't it?
To which Glenn Towler replied, noise-cancelling headphones.
Well, that is true. Yeah, absolutely. Pip says, thanks, Matt. I needed to know that for my next AA flight. Yeah, seriously. So it's the GoGo. The only thing they don't say in that article is they don't actually mention how you get hold of the GoGo thing, but I'm sure if you
go to the website,
if you Google it, I'm sure you'll find it. But
so basically, buy before you fly.
Buy before you fly, and it's only $16 for the entire flight. Yeah. As where it with American, it can be up to $36 for the same flight. So
definitely worth doing it before you fly.
Absolutely.
There you go.
Indeed. Talking of Pilot Pip, we have a great segment from him talking about his last couple of days on his Hawker and flying into Russia, which is coming up very shortly.
So next story is for you, Mark.
Yes, this is on the
travelleisure.com
website. United Airlines' last Boeing 747 flight will have a 1970s theme.
Oh, nice.
Even planes get great retirement parties. United Airlines is officially retiring the Boeing 747, which made its inaugural trip on November the 1st, 1970, with a flight from San Francisco to Honolulu. In honour of its swan song flight, the airline is putting together a retro-inspired goodbye send-off for the aircraft, complete with a 1970s themed menu, a retro uniformed crew, and period-appropriate in-flight entertainment. Seats on the one-way flight, which departs San Francisco at 11 a.m. PST, are available for purchase directly through United. In addition, the seats in the upper deck of the plane will be left unsold, so all of the passengers can visit the space during the flight. Finally, some legroom. According to Travel Weekly, United plans to fly its final international route using a 747 from Seoul to San Francisco on October the 29th. I thought it just said it was San Francisco to Honolulu. Anyway, while exact details have yet to be released, we hope nostalgic travellers get a chance to sip a Harvey Wallbanger while enjoying a screening of the Planet of the Apes at cruising altitude.
Yeah, that is fantastic. That is.
No, you popped the pictures up while Mark was reading the story there.
Yeah.
There's a picture there of the interior of one of these
so
sort of
much
1970s.
Space.
And I just said to Matt, I said, these seats are huge.
They are huge.
They are
absolutely.
They're like armchairs.
They are like armchairs.
When you look at how...
They're not like armchairs, they are armchairs. I mean, look at that. Seriously, look at the state of that.
That is huge. I mean, they did look incredibly comfortable seats back in the olden days.
That is the way to travel, isn't it? Let's be honest. Yes.
I actually would have thought that'd be nice if they could have brought one of the old 747s out of mothballs, say a 200 series,
right? Okay.
And with the old retro interior and just sort of get it airworthy and fly it again. Because look at the wood panelling. I mean, even the wood panelling on the sides of the. I mean, that is just.
Yeah, no, I'm not putting the picture up again, Carlos, because it's depressing the living bejesus out of me, frankly. Now, I've just seen what story's coming up next, Carlos, and I'll be honest with you, I'm a bit nervous.
Don't panic. I did vet this one.
Oh, good. I'm delighted. Anyway, take it away, sir.
So the next story then is it's
I mean, it's a sad story.
It's a sad story. It's a sad story.
A very old, dirty man has passed away. That's the best way to describe it.
So the headline then: remembering Hugh Hefner and his iconic jet black DC-9 named Big Bunny.
I'm sorry. Stuff is appearing in the chat room that I cannot read out, but it is funny. Moving on.
So, long before the aerospace industry had a whole subset marketplace dedicated to providing custom lavish flying palaces for the super rich, wealthy and extravagant businessmen and entertainers who would have to find companies willing to adapt airliners for their personal use, and the results were far from consistent. Elvis Presley's he had his Convair 880 called Lisa Marie, and Bobby Sherman's Boeing 707 called the Starship, and later Donald Trump's 727 are among the most well-known of these pre-Boeing business jet airliner adaptations. But in the aviation industry community, one of the aircraft in particular may be the most beloved, the late Hugh Hefner's jet black DC-9 with the Playboy bunny emblazoned on its tail, famously named the Big Bunny. The plane was nearly as unique and compelling as the man who commissioned it, and like Hugh Hefner, it has stood the test of time when it comes to capturing the public's imagination. At the pinnacle of Playboy magazine's popularity in 1969, Hugh Hefner had pretty much every material possession a man could ask for, aside from his own flying Playboy club. So after researching what airframe would be best suited for the culture, or the pictures on there, icon, parting and logistical needs, Playboy Enterprises chose this still relatively new DC-9 as Hefner's flying chariot and brand ambassador. For the era, the DC-9 was economical, reliable, offered a lot of square footage and had its own air stairs, and most importantly it was sleek and sexy, a trait the competing Boeing 737 didn't really offer. On January the 27th, 1969, Playboy took possession of a DC-9-32 straight from the McDonnell Douglas factory at the cost of $5.5 million. Not a small check to write in 1969. The jet's registration number was November 950 Papa Bravo. So the story goes on then. The aircraft went through an interior outfitting process unlike any jet before it. Instead of the bolted down velvet couches and audio consoles flown on other large private jets, the Playboy jet got a futuristic Scandinavian designed influenced interior that looked like something out of Space Odyssey 2001 with a little barbell phone in. Inside it featured a theatre, multiple lounges full of bathrooms with showers, and of course a big rounded waterbed for the top Playboy himself.
Oh dear.
Throughout his life, Hefner did much of his business atop his bed sheets, and to him the bed wasn't just a place to sleep, and it was to party as well.
Right, yes,
anyway,
okay, all right. I think we're off topic there a tad,
we'll
Carlos.
go on to the next bit of the story.
Okay.
So the jet also featured an integrated entertainment system, which is way ahead of its time, including an 8-track surround sound system and multiple televisions.
Wow.
2 film projectors.
8-track, wow.
And a video system, which was cutting-edge tech in 1969.
Well, yes, absolutely.
It was a disco in the sky, replete with dancing lighting system, and amazingly, the jet also had dimming windows that would go black at the touch of a button.
Yes,
something
I bet.
that wasn't
Yes.
introduced to a fleet of airliners until the 787 well over 40 years later. Wow, I didn't know that.
All right.
The DC-9 also received an executive communications suite that allowed Hef and his guests to make phone calls while cruising through the stratosphere. Big Bunny sported a special crew of flight attendants dubbed aptly Jet Bunnies, who weren't casted for their looks but also for their abilities to actually provide flight attendant service while underway. The women pulled from Hugh Hefner's clubs in Los Angeles and Chicago and sent for training with Continental Airlines, passing the famous airline's intense flight attendant school, which was a prerequisite for the job. And the aircraft itself had an iconic paint job. It was unlike any of the time. No other private jet had been painted black before, so Playboy had to seek special approval from the FAA before applying the unique scheme. Hefner wanted the plane to stand out, and the glossy black livery sure did the trick. Extra bright spotlights were also installed on the jet's exterior to light up the Playboy bunny on its tail for all to see as Hefner made grand arrivals for the locals. The jet hauled Hugh and his entourage of beautiful women, celebrities and Playboy staff all over the world, including some extremely exotic and austere locales. Hefner also used the jet to commute from his properties in Los Angeles and Chicago, where he taped episodes of Playboy After Dark.
Okay, yeah, moving on.
So the
Enough now.
So the jet in 1975, Hugh even lent Big Bunny to Operation Baby Lift, which saw the jet fly baby orphans by the Vietnam War to the New York City, where they were received by their adoptive families. The jet was also used to ferry a gorilla named Baltimore Jack across the US to meet a potential mate. So the massive cost of maintaining and operating a non-revenue airliner with its own hand-picked crew, no less, was too great for Playboy to justify as the magazine's circulation began to decline in the mid-1970s. Hefner had also fallen in love with a new toy, an estate that would become widely known as the Playboy Mansion.
Okay.
The famous jet was sold to Venezuelan Airlines in 1975 and went on to spend decades in and out of storage before ending up with Aeromexico, where it served running normal airline services in its incredible interior long gone until 2004, when it was finally retired. The parted out jet's fuselage is now an educational tool, having been donated to the city of Cadereyta in Mexico.
Wow.
So there we go.
I must
Bit of
admit,
an iconic jet, really.
Yeah, I got a little bit nervous when because I assumed that the chat room were talking about this, but they were actually talking the previous story when where was it? Lane Street was talking about nice shag carpeting, but I think he was talking about the 747 before.
And actually, especially for Nick,
right.
Captain Nick, because Nick was in the chat room.
Yeah.
The jet, the DC-9, wasn't the only aircraft to be painted all black with the Playboy bell and tail. They actually painted one of Nick's aircraft, the F4 Phantom. Yeah, one of the F4 Phantoms as well in the US Navy had the Playboy bunny on the tail as well.
I genuinely wish I could read out at least even half of the comments that are in the chat room,
Really?
but I'm afraid that can't be done. So
moving on then.
There was comment from Pip that was saying, "What on earth has happened to Carlos's face?" I can't imagine what that's all about. Yes, indeed. It's obviously been a few weeks since Pip has actually cottoned eyes onto the bet that is.
I'm just reading. I'm going to read the chat room comments now while you read the next story.
Okay, all right then. So the next story is on the CBC News website, and the headline is "People grabbed their seats. United flight from Vancouver climbs to miss glider." This is not good news at all. United Airlines flight travelling from Vancouver to Chicago Monday afternoon had a near collision with a glider over Rockford, Illinois, the US Federal Aviation Agency has said. The pilot of United Flight 246 reported seeing a glider while flying near Rockford. The FAA said in an emailed statement the airliner was approaching Chicago's O'Hare Airport. A passenger said the Boeing 737 quickly climbed 122 metres to avoid a collision. Callum Snape, a passenger on the flight, said the sudden manoeuvre was felt by all on board. All of a sudden, the right wing just completely dropped on the plane, and we just really did do a sharp turn to the right, he said. No one screamed, but it was enough that many people grabbed their seats and their armrests. Well, we couldn't see what was happening, but I knew it was out of the ordinary. The FAA has said it will investigate. So now there is a video on here. I don't know what the video is, so let's just have a quick look, see if it is relevant. It may be. It's
not going to play.
No, it's just a description of what I've just read out. So that is.
There is actually a flight plan, or flight path, I should say, on which is someone's screenshot from Flight Radar 24.
Yeah,
another
indeed.
awesome app to have on your phone. It does show the aircraft making quite an extreme turn on this, and obviously a serious sort of situation really to be in.
It's very
gliders,
strange, isn't it?
actually, we have in the UK here, in the east coast of the UK, where me and Matt live here, we have quite a few glider schools in the area, especially sort of towards the Midlands and that. There's a lot of glider schools, and it's quite important that they know where everyone is. Matt's looking at something. Don't know what Matt's looking at.
That's all right. I've had a communication from Sir Nev.
Nev.
But,
Nev's.
I don't know if I can get it to come.
We have had a communication from
We have.
Nev.
He's obviously it's all about to kick off in the
AV
in
Awards.
the AV.
Sounds like he's in a nightclub.
It does sound like he's in a
award.
nightclub at the moment. I think that is essentially what's going on. He's lied. He's not gone to the AV Awards at all. He's in London clubbing. That's what it is. Yes, that's the first thing I think of when I see Nev. Of course. Anyway, moving on. Mark, the next story is with you.
Yes, this is on cityam.com, and it's the 5 best and worst airlines as ranked by passengers.
It's top 5 time.
It is top
we
5
like that.
time, which means that I have to press this button here. Or
that one.
Or that one. That went really well. Shall I do that properly? Here we go. Or not. It's not going very well at all, is it?
Which are we doing first, the top 5 or the worst 5?
So what should we do?
What should we do?
We'll do the top 5 ones first. I think,
Okay, here we go,
Mark,
then.
and then we'll do the worst ones, the 5 worst airlines.
Okay, so we'll start with the good news first, shall we? And in at number 5.
So at number 5, then in the top 5 airlines, it's Air France KLM.
And number 4, please, Mark.
That would be Ryanair.
Huh? Number 4?
That's what it says.
Fix. Anyway, number 3, please.
At number 3, it's that lovely red airline. It's Virgin.
It didn't quite make top of the charts. It is number 2.
That is EasyJet.
Okay. What was this again? What is
It's
this top 5
top
of what?
5.
What, best airlines like ever?
Yeah.
Whatever.
As ranked by passengers.
As ranked by passengers,
Really? Okay.
So
all
who's
right.
at number 1 then?
So I don't know. Who is at number 1, Carlos?
At number 1 then, it is the airline of choice for Sir Nev.
Right.
It's obviously going to be
yes,
British Airways.
Okay, of course. Yes, absolutely. So we'll move swiftly on then. Let's go. Let's turn the tables then. What is the worst airlines as voted by passengers? In at number 5, please, Mark.
That's Iberia.
Ooh, Spanish carrier.
Oh, really? Number 4.
Oh, it's one of Jenny from Rome's favourites. It's Alitalia.
Oh, climbed 3 places. It's number 3.
I don't know whether it's pronounced LOT or LOT.
Polish Airlines,
Polish
that
one,
one.
isn't it?
Polish airline. It is not quite at the top. It's number 2.
Number 2, it's Air Berlin.
Oh, dear. And officially the worst airline ever. It is number 1.
Well, I sense a theme with these last two. It's German Wings.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Oh, the Germans will not be pleased about that. That is a given. So so that's an unusual. And this is voted for by passengers. Is
It's
it?
research from software firm Clara Bridge. This is a passenger satisfaction survey.
Did you like my fade? That was really
I like
smooth.
that. It's
Wasn't
really
it?
good. So they apparently, according to this this little article here, they studied a study of 2,491 people.
Okay.
Said that their complaints were ignored. Oh, dear, that's a bit
that's
bad.
not good. That is not good at all.
But no, there we go. I mean, I think we've flown on. One of us have flown on one of those airlines at some point in time. But I
Yes.
mean, they must have done this survey before.
Yeah.
Before 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I can only
with
assume.
with Ryanair being in 4th place.
Yeah, of the best. That's
the
the one
best.
that sort of take me a little bit by surprise.
There does seem to be a European theme to all the airlines, and reading above, it does say that it was a ranking of 16 airlines, so it looks like they only looked at 16 airlines in total.
Okay, right. So it's not the most concise survey, but never mind. We do like a top 10,
Or a
however,
five.
or
Or
a
a top
5.
five,
Well, it's
yeah.
a top 10, isn't it? Because it was half and half.
Ish,
But,
yeah, half and half.
I'll give you that. You can have that one.
But Nev, rest assured, he's at these AV Awards now.
He is,
very
yeah.
happy
Yeah.
that BA were in the top spot.
He will be delighted, I'm sure. I shall ping him a communication forthwith and without hate as we
he
move
got
on
the show
to
notes as well.
Oh,
so he'll
did he?
already know.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
He'll have read them, unlike me.
Yeah, exactly. yeah. I tell you what. I bet you Nev read his show notes for tonight's show.
Oh,
and
I dare
he's not
say,
even
and he's not
here.
even. No, I know. I'm rubbish. Yeah,
Mm.
it's more to make sure that I'm including the right segment. That's more what
Yeah.
it'll have been about. Anyway, on that subject matter, I think actually we're
Got a segment from Pip.
we
coming
are.
up
We're going
somewhere.
with that. Are we, sir?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
You didn't read your show notes,
No,
obviously.
I didn't. No,
dear.
we've covered this in
Mark,
great length.
do you want a job?
Thomas. Definitely, you can have one.
So we have got coming up.
The travel to Norfolk would be a bit beyond my normal means.
Oh yeah. But you do live in a very, very nice part of the country.
Absolutely.
Though,
No, it's all right. It's fine, Mark. We'll come. We'll move there. It's fine.
We'll bring the studio to you. Yeah.
You're most welcome.
Yeah.
So coming up now, then we have got a very, very good, very amazing segment from Pilot Pip. He's really pulled the rabbit out of the bunny out of the hat. There we go, bunny out of the hat.
And it arrived a day early and everything.
A day early.
I know.
Pip, he sent this segment in yesterday.
I know. I had time to render it and everything.
It's amazing. So Pip's going to be talking about obviously the Hawker and flying in Russia. So we're going to bring that to you right now.
Plane safety from the flight deck with Pilot Pip.
Hi everyone, it's Pip here. Well, my time on the Hawker is drawing to an end. I'm here on my very last tour on the Hawker, and in fact tomorrow will be my last few flights. Got 3 short flights around the UK scheduled, and then that will be it. My time on the Hawker will be done. Such a shame. But it's been a really fun last tour actually. We've done some really good trips, some classic Hawker flights, some nice long flights. We did 5 hours yesterday from Batumi to London. Yeah, Batumi. I'll let you figure out where that is. Go and look on a map because I had to look it up as well. But these are the trips I love. The Hawker's got such a great range. It's so versatile. We can fill the thing up with fuel and passengers, and off we go. 2,500 miles easy. For a little aeroplane, that's pretty good. So I will miss the aircraft terribly, but I'm getting excited for the new one. I've been reading up, I've been studying. It looks pretty swanky. It's got some clever avionics and a nice coffee machine, as I said before. But also this tour, I've been to Moscow a couple of times, and when we see Moscow or somewhere in Russia come up on our schedule, we usually roll our eyes and go, ugh, not Russia. And that's not fair at all, because actually it's great. It's fun going to Russia. It's different, I'll give it that. It is a little bit different. They've got some different procedures and some different ways of doing things. And it's really our own ignorances and prejudices that perhaps make it slightly more of a chore than it needs be. But I thought I'd take this opportunity, as it's my last time going to Russia for certainly quite a while. I thought I'd talk a little bit about Russia operations. Because on the new aircraft, on the Embraer, we won't be going to Russia at all. I got just yesterday my invitation to renew my Russian visa. For Brits, that's an annual process, we have to renew our Russian visa every year. So I got an email from the embassy saying, your visa is due. So I emailed straight away my would-be new fleet manager. I said, hey, Roger, it is his name. I said, hey, Roger, should I bother renewing my Russian visa? Am I going to need it? And he immediately wrote back and said, nah, save yourself the hassle. You will not be going to Russia on the new jet. And actually, I find that a little bit sad. I do enjoy going to Moscow and St. Petersburg and some of those weird and wacky out-of-the-way places you've never heard of. And there are many of them because, of course, Russia is absolutely flipping enormous. There are so many wonderful places to go. Krasnodar we were in the other day. St. Petersburg, there's Chelyabinsk, there's Yekaterinburg. There's so many places. But as I say, it is a little bit different flying there. And one of the biggest challenges is, of course, language. The Russian and English really aren't similar at all. And, to look at road signs and things like that, it's really quite a difficult task to translate because of course, they use a totally different alphabet. If you're in France or Germany or Italy somewhere, you can at least have a stab at translating it because you recognize the letters. In Russian with a Cyrillic alphabet, it's totally different. And English isn't particularly widely spoken. Of course, English is still the international language of aviation, and as air traffic controllers and aviation workers, English is widely spoken, but with quite a wide range of ability, I would say. Generally, the Moscow air traffic controllers are all great. They speak fluent English, of course, but it can be very heavily accented, and that in itself isn't a problem. Go to France and they'll speak with a heavy French accent, or go to Italy, speak with a heavy Italian accent, go to America and they speak with just a weird accent. I can't understand a word they say over there. But at least we're very used to those accents, and you learn, you get an ear for them over time. With a bit of practice, you get better at it. But Russian's not a language and an accent we hear all that often, so it can be a little more difficult to become accustomed to the Russian accent. So that's just a small challenge from that point of view, is transmitting instructions and understanding what they're saying back to you. So the best thing there is to be as standard as possible. Just use standard words: descent, climb, speed, all that sort of stuff. If you need to ask for something a little bit out of the ordinary, then that's where it can potentially start to become a little bit different. But that really comes into play when you get on the ground and you're having to interact with airport workers, ramp workers, refuelers, the dreaded security people, good Lord. Then language is a bit of a problem, I'll be honest. Now, you could say, and you could argue, that for someone like me who's going to Russia regularly, that I should stop being so damn lazy, being a typical lazy Brit, and learn a bit of Russian. And that would be an entirely proper, good argument to make. I probably should. After all these years, 10 years, I should have learnt a little bit of Russian. As it is, I don't think I can say anything other than thank you and hello. Now, one of the main differences when it comes to flying procedures is the fact that over there they're metric. They use meters, whereas we use feet, they use meters. And you could, again, roll your eyes and say, oh, those pesky Russians, why are they being so difficult in using meters? Well, actually, believe it or not, they're correct and we're wrong. It was agreed a long time ago at ICAO level that the standard unit of measurements would be the meter. ICAO agreed that the metric system would be the standard used. It's just that, for whatever reason, us, the Americans and everyone else, we were just too damn lazy to do anything about it. So actually, the Russians are entirely correct to be using the metric system. But in fact, they are converting to feet, and that process is almost now complete. Back when I started flying into Russia regularly, when you got to the Russian border, you'd be at a flight level in feet, let's say 40,000 feet or flight level 400. And just before you got to the border, you would have to adjust to a metric flight level. So perhaps 13,000 meters, for instance. But actually, a couple of years ago, that disappeared. So now, at the higher levels, above what we call transition altitude, it's actually all in feet, and you don't switch to metric until much later on in the approach, when you get closer to the ground and pass below the transition level. So now you'll stay on feet until you're down all the way towards the ground. I think transition level in the Moscow area is around about 6,000 feet or so. And then below that, as you descend to an altitude, you'll then have to convert to feet. And that's not a big problem. In the Hawker, it's just a matter of a couple of buttons to push. You hit a button called the refs, which brings up the references page. You do a bit of knob twiddling, you twiddle your knob and go down to a little selection where you can choose feet or metric. As a lot of knob twiddling goes on in the Hawker, especially on those 5-hour trips. So you convert to meters, and you'll then be flying heights in meters. And I emphasize the word heights because, as well as being metric, they also fly on QFE over in Russia. And generally in the Western world, perhaps the military are a bit of an exception, but generally we fly on QNH, which is altitude measured above sea level, whereas QFE is height measured above the ground. Now, I'm not going to go into a lengthy discussion about the difference between the two, but in Moscow they use QFE, which again isn't a big problem, but you do need to bear it in mind because there's a couple of implications there for things like, EGPWS systems. You need to have an awareness of the difference between the QFE and the QNH. Now, if you're flying an older aircraft that doesn't have fancy electronics, then you're having to make these conversions using paper charts and tables, and that can be fraught with a little bit of danger, I suppose, if you're not very much paying attention. It would be quite easy to end up in a situation where you're much lower, for instance, than you think you are. So you end up flying a height in meters as you approach one of the 3 Moscow airports. It's generally Moscow we're going to. And they've got 3 main airports there. They've got Sheremetyevo, they've got Domodedovo and Nukovo. Nukovo is the one we generally use more than the other two, but we go to all of them. There's a few other airports dotted around as well, the Moscow area. And typically in Russia, they tend to bring you in on quite a short final, so you'll come down quite low quite early, so it's quite important to start configuring quite early, because if you're not really on the ball, you'll suddenly find yourself on a 4 or 5 mile final at quite a high speed if you haven't started to configure early. And also that because you're so much closer to the ground, typically you're coming in at maybe 1,500 feet or 2,000 feet when you pick up the ILS. Because you're closer to the ground, you get a definite sensation of moving faster. I mean, you're not really, it's just a sense of perspective. But it does seem to have a sort of psychological effect if you perceive everything to be happening much faster around you. And of course, one of the other fun things of the Moscow area is the airports all have so many different arrivals to them, which take you to the same runway. There's pages and pages of arrivals, and half the fun of it is going through and trying to work out which one it is you're going to get. And you can absolutely guarantee whichever one you finally decide on, it'll be the other one. So you come in, you eventually come round, hopefully you've got yourself sorted, you're poop in a pile, as Nick would say, get yourself slowed down, and you end up on the ILS, and you will always get the obligatory clear to land, good luck. I don't know why they feel the need to say good luck with every landing clearance, but they do it. Maybe they know something we don't. And then, hopefully, if you can see the runway, you'll land on it. And I say hopefully if you can see the runway because Moscow or Russian winters are severe. That's one of the other big challenges of flying in Russia and in Moscow is the weather. It can be pretty damned tricky. Now, I was there just yesterday, late September, and the temperature already is dropped to 4 or 5 degrees Celsius in the evening, so it's quite chilly, and I'm certain it's only a matter of a few weeks before the first snows arrive. And when they do, they are there for the long term. There's always snow in Moscow over the winter, always, 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 you can guarantee it, and lots of it as well. And all sorts of other winter hazards like freezing fog, freezing rain, which is particularly nasty stuff. You don't want to get caught in freezing rain. It will put ice all over your aircraft very quickly, which is a dangerous thing potentially. Low visibilities, blowing snow, it can be tricky. And of course, slippery runways are something we really have to think about very carefully in Moscow. They have slightly different ways of measuring braking coefficients there, so you have to be mindful of that. They'll give you a braking coefficient much as they do over here, but you need to remember they're using a different scale. And often the braking coefficient that they give you over the radio bears no relation to the actual braking coefficient. I've on several occasions landed there where the braking action was supposedly good, only to touch down and go skidding along the runway sideways. Well, I exaggerate a little bit, but you can certainly feel the aircraft skidding around underneath you as you try and gently apply the brakes. But by and large, flying's the easy bit. Flying in and out of Moscow. Yeah, let's go, there's some challenges, but that's the easier bit. The real challenge actually comes on the ground. There are endless forms to be signed. Bureaucracy is rife in Russia, because of the way their state developed, I suppose, a communist government. There were jobs for everybody, and everyone has something to do. There's, you go out into Moscow and you'll see whole gangs of people just sweeping streets or painting fences. Unemployment is probably around zero. And so it is at the airport. You've got guys just wandering around with forms, and they come along, give you a form, and it's all in Russian. You've absolutely no idea what it says. And they say, here, sign. And you say, hey, what's this form for? And their standard answer is, security. Oh, another security form. Okay, so you sign it. I've no idea what it is I'm signing. But after 10 years, no one's come and put me in prison or kidnapped my family or anything, so I'm assuming it's probably okay. And they're very hot on customs and immigration there. If you arrive without a valid visa, you are in for an ordeal. And I've done that once. Occasionally we just don't have a choice. We go there and we haven't got a valid visa. That's like a 2 or at least a 3-hour process of going round to the visa office and having a temporary visa issued. It's a nightmare. But you land there and you're not really allowed to open the door until the customs and immigration people come to the aircraft. And you recognise these because these are the people with enormous silly hats. Something in Russia about wearing a big hat. The bigger your hat, the more important you are, I think. So the customs people come out, open the door. Passports is the first thing they'll say. Passports. Not, hello, welcome to Russia. It's just part of their job, I think. They're genuinely very friendly, warm people. Although I must say, Moscow does seem to have a harsher outlook on life. If I can put it that way. You go to other cities, go to Ekaterinburg or Krasnodar or St. Petersburg, and people there are generally much livelier and happier, and somehow the places have a bit more colour. Moscow seems to be a bit more edgy. It's quite sort of grey in its attitude. People, at first appearances anyway, are just a little bit harsher or a bit less friendly than you might hope for. But I'm sure it's only a facade. But eventually, if all's well, if they like the look of your face and there's no problems with your passport, then you'll eventually be let off the aircraft. Your passengers can get off, and you eventually can get off as well. And you go through, and at some point later in the process, they'll hand you back your passport with a little white bit of paper in it, which you must not lose. If you lose that bit of paper, you're done for. You won't get into a hotel, and they certainly won't let you back out again. So protect that little bit of paper. Top tip for all those people who are thinking about visiting the Soccer World Cup there next summer. Plan your trip well in advance. Get your visa sorted. Get everything arranged, because if something takes a week here, it's going to take a month over there. So once you get out of the airport, then you're faced with, for me, the absolute worst bits about going to Russia. The rest of it's fine, but this is what I genuinely hate about having to visit Moscow, at least. It's the traffic on the roads. My God, they can do a traffic jam like no one else in the world. Whew, and I've seen some traffic jams in my time, but Moscow loves a good traffic jam. Of course, if it's winter and the weather is foul and snowing, and if there's been an accident or something, then the roads are just chocker. Moscow's surrounded by, I think about 2, maybe even 3 big ring roads, a bit like the M25 here in the UK. But they are just jammed. I have spent, no word of a lie before, in fact several times, I've spent 4 to 5 hours sat in traffic just to do a journey of not so many miles into the centre of town to get to the hotel. But of course, once you get to the hotel, once you're in town, then it's great. Moscow's a lovely city. It's a huge city. 10 million people live there. It's a big city. It's very different to look at from London or Barcelona or Miami or somewhere else. You can see a lot of history. You can see the evolution from the communist governments. Lots of high-rise buildings. Very wide streets is very typical of Russian and Eastern European cities. It's very wide streets with very wide pavements or sidewalks. But beautiful, go to the Kremlin and the churches and things around there. It's gorgeous. The one thing I never got to do, and I really regret not doing, is going to the Space Museum in Moscow. There's this lovely big statue that we drive past often on the way to the hotel. Great big plinth, and at the top of it, looking very proud and strong, is a statue of Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space. And they've got a great space museum there, and you can see all the fascinating things they've sent up into space. Russia really, for many, many years, were the leaders in space exploration, in the space race. I mean, really, they won the space race. The Americans got to the moon first, but all the other firsts, all of them were all Russia. First man in space, first spaceship in space, first satellite, first woman, first black person in space. I think it was a Russian Cuban. What else? First animal, did I say that? If there was a first, they did it. And of course, still they're great leaders in space technology. In fact, if you want to go to space right now, today, then Russia is the only country with the capability to launch astronauts into space with their Soyuz rockets since NASA discontinued the shuttle, quite some years ago now. And the Russians are the only kids on the block able to do it. So maybe another day I'll get a chance to go back and visit the Space Museum. But, wow, listen, I've been rambling for 20 minutes. I think that's enough about that. So I'll miss Russia. I'm genuinely sad that I won't be going there again for quite a while. So I'm going to finish this segment by, in my best Russian, saying Prosaya Rossiya, vidite bez nova. Catch you all next time, folks.
I didn't understand a word of that.
I think you were saying, do you want to go out for a beer?
Oh, okay,
Yeah, I think
right,
that's what I
okay. Yeah, my Russian is really rusty, as he does a completely... Anyway,
but no, that was absolutely brilliant, Pip.
Yeah.
Mega.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for sending that in. That was really, really good. So we're going to welcome onto the show then our guest for this evening, Mark Harvey. Welcome onto the show, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invite. It's great fun.
Great. So, Mark, you've hopefully you've been listening to the show for some time. When did you start listening to this drivel we put out each week, as Matt calls it?
Absolutely.
I think it was around about 2.5 years ago.
Wow,
Really?
Blimey! You really have been suffering. Is it a particularly bad case of insomnia? I mean, what's the? Yeah.
Come on, Mark.
No,
How did
I
you
love
find
all
us?
the aviation and this airline geeks and a couple of others are on my phone, and they make my journey to work and home again much more enjoyable than listening to the radio, which gets a bit boring.
Yeah, do you know what? I mean, that's something that's happening more and more, isn't it? More and more people are actually listening to podcasts in the car. I suppose as more, cars tend to have the ability for you to play MP3s and things like that. So it's no different to dumping something into your playlist. What are you laughing at?
I'm just reading the chat room comments.
Right, yeah. Okay.
No, it's nice to know that you do listen to the show. Obviously,
absolutely.
So have you got the APG syndrome as well?
I think everyone's.
I tried listening to that, and it's very good, but my commute is only half an hour
Right.
each way. So if I listen to that as well, I just fall further and further behind.
Yes, that's a fair point. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's especially after today. I think was it 3.5 hours.
3.5 hour long show. Yeah. Well
Mind you,
done.
we've got no room to talk. We hit a new record a few weeks back with 2.5 hours.
Yeah, we did 2.5 hour long shows.
We try and keep it under 2 hours if we can.
I know. So Mark, you do obviously aviation photography. So how many years have you been doing that?
Well, quite some time. I used to go to the St Morgan Air Show or International Air Day near Newquay. That hasn't been run for quite some time now, but I've got some photos on my film camera of the Vulcan, the Mosquito, and aircraft like that. And it's amazing that, on a roll of 36 shots, you've got about 30 good shots, whereas now you'll go to an air show with a digital camera and take something like 1,500 shots and probably get about the same.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
30 good shots.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose at least this time you're not. I suppose nowadays, as the technology has moved on, of course, you're not really wasting developing time on shots that are no good, if you like. So you can pick out the best ones and make a little tweak or whatever before you dump it out. I mean, it really has revolutionised the way that photography is done. The digital age.
Oh, absolutely. The only thing I was thinking about it the other day, it used to be it was a lot more expensive. Yeah. But you used to take your film, you used to take it in to be processed. They came back with the photos. You could then choose what you wanted. You sent it off to be enlarged.
Yeah.
They did it all for you.
Right.
Or unless you had your own darkroom, which was
prohibitively
also good
expensive.
Fun.
Yes. Yeah.
But very good fun at times. Yeah. But now you've got 1,500 shots to go through on the computer yourself. And it just can be quite daunting at times coming back from an air show with that many photos, and having to sit down and go through it, which is why I've got probably about 3 years worth of photos to go back through at some point.
Yes, we have a photographer that's just opposite me who's doing exactly the same
I'm
thing.
just a novice. Yeah. I'm a novice compared to Mark.
Well,
blimey.
that's true.
But for people like me, the novice out here, obviously we have got a few professional photographers in the chat room, Mr. Warner and Mr. Anderson. How easy is aviation photography as opposed to just normal, taking a picture of a cat or a dog?
It's around about the same. Each genre of photography has its own challenges. Aviation, depending on what you're photographing, can be fairly easy, or you can make it as hard as you like. If you're just taking a picture of a static aircraft, it's no problem at all. If you're taking an aircraft flying past you, then a bit of practice with panning the camera to keep the motion with it, and you can get a good shot. And if it's a propeller-driven plane, then you need to slow the shutter down, and that becomes more of a challenge, but it's just holding the camera steady. Other genres, like as you say, with the pet photography, and I know that there's somebody that listens to the show and is sometimes on the show that is very, very good at that. You've got something that can't take direction very easily, and you have to get a fantastic shot with something that's a lot less predictable than an aircraft.
Yeah.
And an aircraft, you can see where it's pointing, you know where it's going to go. Whereas with a dog or a cat or something like that, you can take it into its head to sort of dash off at a different direction. So each genre has its own challenges.
Going back to what we were talking about earlier, actually, Jonathan Warner was just saying, can you imagine the cost of developing after he took 9,500 shots at Fairford this year? I mean, that is a genuine sort of concern, I think. But is it because people are, I suppose, because it isn't as expensive as it used to be, and you can look at them beforehand, as you say, you are running off multiple shots in the hope that you do get that one is the perfect one that's perfectly in focus, and the exposure is right and all that kind of thing. I mean, is that something that sort of takes a lot of practice, or is it all about knowing your camera essentially?
Knowing the camera is a big part of it, and the modern cameras are very, very good, particularly with the focus and their autofocus. The cameras are great. You also have to have a good eye for the picture as well.
Yeah,
you have to have you have to see what's coming and see what's going to look good.
Yeah, that is true.
So you've got to have the tools, but you've also got to be able to see it as well.
Yes, you've almost got to sort of see the picture in advance. You've got to know what you're trying to pull off, I suppose, essentially, before you sort of line up that shot and take it. But
so what is the camera of choice then? Because obviously we've got people who prefer Nikon, people who prefer Canon, people who prefer Sony. And there are other makes and brands of cameras, digital DSLR cameras out there. What is your chosen weapon, I should say?
My brand is the Canon.
Good man.
But as I always say to anybody that is talking about it, it's whatever suits you the best, most particularly what your friends have got.
Yeah.
Because they're the ones that you can ask for help.
True.
And you can ask to borrow their kit as well.
That's true. If you've run out of a battery or something like that.
Or if yours broke before React.
That is true. Yeah,
Mr. Warner.
Yes, indeed. Yeah.
So Canon then. So any particular sort of, I think I've got a 750 and a 600D, I think I've got at the minute for my choice. But any particular brand you can recommend to someone who wants to take good aviation photography?
They're all good. It depends a little bit on what you want to do, and the more you spend, the better the camera is going to be. It's probably better actually to spend more money on the lenses, particularly on the telephotos and telephoto zooms, because the more money you spend on quality lenses, the better the images you get in the camera, and a lens will outlast the camera body.
Although you say that, but I know Carlos had a problem recently, didn't you, where it was actually the camera, if you don't use the right camera lens with the right camera, you do actually get, you lose a lot of functionality, don't you?
Well, a little bit, yeah. That was with, I've got a Canon camera, 750D, and I've got a Sigma lens, 150x500 Sigma lens. Obviously, Sigma's the lens that's quarter of the price of a Canon lens of the similar kind of size, quality sort of thing, but when you put it on, it kind of loses a couple of functionalities that you'd normally get with a Canon lens. But I mean, yourself, have you got Canon lenses, or do you have you used a Sigma lens?
I've used both. I've got my main camera I've got the Canon 70-300L lens, so that's the top end lens. I was left a little bit of money a little while back, and I invested it in the camera and the lens, and that's got to last me for a very long time now.
Fair point.
But I've also got a Sigma. Well, I've got 2 Sigma lenses that I find very useful and do a very good job.
Tony S in the chat room is actually asking a question. Have you got any tips for anyone wanting to do aviation videography?
I've not done videography myself. Again, it's just a case of knowing your subject and knowing your equipment. Knowing the zoom and being able to sort of keep the subject in the frame is going to be the most important, I would think.
Yeah. I mean, I always thought when obviously when we did the couple of air shows this year, and it's the first time that I've actually ended up operating the camera, especially when we were at Old Buck, because it was just me and Owen there on our own on the Saturday, and it's incredibly difficult. I mean, I have so much respect for people that do it. Well, I mean, like the photography as well. I mean, I've always been a bit sniffy about Carlos and his photographs, but it's all, you know, because they always look so. I mean, they always look so nice that actually, and again with Mark, and I say the same with Dan and Jonathan's photos and all that kind of thing. You lot make it all look so damn easy.
No,
that's what
I just get lucky with the odd shot.
This is it. It's just like like trying to follow aircraft in the sky, and that is one of the most difficult things I've ever done. Never mind this, you know, building systems that enable us to broadcast live anywhere in the middle of a field. That's easy peasy in comparison to doing these photographs, I tell you.
Do you find it helps to have a good tripod as well when you're taking aviation photography, Mark?
To be honest, I don't use a tripod for that.
Wow.
Because I'm panning with the aircraft, I find it easier to handhold.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. So how did this all come about then, Mark? I mean, what had you always been interested in photography, or was it the love of aviation and then you sort of developed a love for it? How did the two marry up and become one, essentially?
The two developed, pardon the pun, sort of in parallel. My father was a very good photographer, very keen photographer, and got me very involved in it, and had some friends that spent some time helping me, one of whom was used to teach photography in London and used to teach the darkroom techniques.
Wow.
Developing in London, and he would teach me. He would spend time and come down and help me and teach me how to do the black and white developing and even colour at home, and that was fantastic. And the aviation side, I actually was born and spent my early years in Southend. And right by Southend Airport, as it is known now, London Southend.
Yeah, of course, absolutely, yes.
But at that time, and I have to admit to being slightly older than the two of you, that was when they were making the Carve Air out of the old DC, I believe it was the DC-6s, which would be used for ferrying people with their cars across the channel. And they were doing that at Southend. So I would see those in the as we were driving past. They had a large number of small general aviation aircraft there as well, which were quite interesting. They also had a very, very good museum, aviation museum, and that's somewhere I always used to like to go. Didn't go as much as I would have liked. Everybody wanted to do other things in the family, but I went there as much as I could, and used to get to wander around some of the aircraft. But the big thing about there was some of them, and one in particular, was open and you could go inside and you could climb over it. And so I've spent many a day happily climbing over a Blackburn Beverley, which is a large cargo plane used by the RAF. It's quite ugly, but it holds a very, very fond space in my memories of sort of climbing up inside it, sitting in the pilot seat, pretending to fly it when I was about 8, 9, 10 years old. And that has helped develop my passion for aviation. When we moved down to Cornwall, we were near RAF St Morgan, which is now Newquay Airport. And we had as it was then, the Nimrods and the Canberras flying out from there, and always had the St Morgan Air Show, which was absolutely fantastic.
So when you're attending air shows and that, do you get to attend, obviously because you live, well, in the back end of nowhere, a bit like me and Matt here in the east of England, but do you get to attend any of the big air shows like Farnborough and Riyadh each year?
I've not managed Farnborough yet. I'm hoping to. That's on the wish list for next year. I managed to attend Riyadh one year. I've tended to do those based in the southwest a bit more, which is the Culdrose Air Day, which unfortunately they didn't hold this year, and the Yeovilton Air Day, which of course both of those are the Navy air shows, and both very, very good.
So I mean, I've been going through some of the photographs that's on your website, and frankly, they're absolutely gorgeous. Out of all of the aircraft that you've photographed, is there one particular shot that is really memorable for you? As like, that was, you know, I don't know, the shot that means the most to you, that you're most proud of?
I think there's a couple of them. They're not on the website yet. I'm working on them, putting them up there. But it was a reason I was at the Culdrose Air Day a couple of years back, and I actually had to leave early. But I didn't leave in the normal way.
Oh.
I actually left sitting in the back of a short sky van down the runway with the back door wide open, sitting in a seat, strapped fully in, so it was all safe, looking out of that back door. And then we poodled off over South Cornwall, over to Falmouth, and we just flew around in circles for a little while until something turned up.
Wow.
And what had been arranged, and I don't know if you've got the camera on at the moment, was the Sea Vixen.
Oh, Sea Vixen, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah,
wow.
I've similar. There's actually one of those over at the Malta Aviation Museum.
Is there?
Yes, that was the one that had been arranged that we would see.
Wow.
And while we were waiting for that to arrive, they'd actually arranged a bonus.
Oh,
now, this is what most people, probably the Sea Vixen was what I really wanted to go and see.
Yeah.
But I could not complain when they arranged for the Seafire.
Oh, wow.
To turn up.
Wow, look at that. That's amazing.
And the absolute holy grail, according to some photographers, is to get a sharp picture air-to-air with a full disc of the propeller.
Yes, of course.
Really
Absolutely.
Which is something I actually managed to achieve with the Pendennis Castle in the background there.
Fantastic.
Which,
So Jonathan Warner's rather
pleased about that, yeah,
in the chat room.
So obviously, guys, for those of you listening on the audio thing, I will put, if Mark is okay with that, I will just put a couple of screen grabs from what we've done.
What I will do is I will email those up to you, Matt.
Okay, lovely. All right, and we'll just put just low res. I don't want anything too fancy, just low res, because I just like, they are, honestly, they're such stunning pictures. I'd like people who are listening to the audio version of the show get a chance, they really need to have a look at some of these pictures. Or are they on your website at all?
Those two aren't yet, but they will be very soon.
So, we may as well, as we've mentioned the subject, let's talk about your lovely website.
Yeah, tell us about the website, Mark.
Well, a few years back, I went to an air-to-air academy organised by the Aviation photo crew, which is why I had the opportunity at Culdrose to fly with them and take those shots. And leading on from that, I thought I need somewhere to sort of put my aviation photography that's not my normal website.
Yeah.
So I built leadingedgephotography.co.uk. And I just let it sit there for a while. I've been doing little bits to it, but then I thought I really need to do something with it. And it's had a major redesign and a lot of work put on it in the last week or so. And then last week it went live with the new design. And one thing that I'll announce on here is I do a screen or a calendar wallpaper for the computers in various sizes, hopefully that most people will be able to use. put a new one up each month, and the October one is now live on my site, and I'm announcing that on here.
Oh, wow.
Before I put it out on Twitter or Facebook or anything else like that. So
wow, very cool. Thank you.
And there's a link to my previous recordings that I sent in, because it was actually a photograph of one of the gazelles from the Gazelle Squadron who I spoke to at Bryce Norton when they arrived at Culdrose Air Day a couple of years back.
I have to say, Mark, one of my favourite ones of your wallpapers, your monthly wallpaper posts, is definitely June's wallpaper, which is the Breitling Super Constellation.
Oh yes, she's beautiful.
Oh yeah.
That was over at the Sanicol Air Show in Belgium, which is a fantastic thing. That's where the Air to Air Academy took place.
The Connie is definitely one of my favourite. One of my favourite piston aircraft, for sure.
Absolutely iconic.
Yeah, for sure.
Love it. What a great idea. I like that, having the wallpaper thing with a little calendar. That's a brilliant idea. Yeah, you'll have to do a calendar. Perhaps we can have...
I'll have a calendar on the wall at work.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. But, that's really really exciting. It's
so what are the future plans anyway, Mark? Is there anything you've got planned for the future for the photography side of things? Are you just going to attend more and more air shows?
I'm going to try and attend a couple of air shows next year, take as many shots as I can. I want to try and get up to a couple of the local airfields as well, try and get to know some of the pilots and sort of take some photos of just the general aviation aircraft coming and going. And possibly even talk one or two of them into taking me up if they might be so inclined.
That's a good idea.
Yes, I like that. Yes,
a very good idea. We have actually later on, before we finish the show, we've got some news coming up of a certain meetup actually that's happening next month. So that's going to come up later. But we have got coming up for you next a segment from Nev. I mean, he's not here. He is, as we said, he's at an AV night somewhere in Londinium somewhere. But Nev has been working tirelessly, as always, putting together segments for us, and sent one in for us this week. And
we return to basically turning left for less.
Hello, it's Nev here with another in the series of Nev's Passenger Experience. If you were listening a few weeks ago, you may remember me speaking with Michele Robson, who writes a blog called Turning Left for Less, which she describes as champagne travel on a Prosecco budget. And I really enjoyed chatting with her about that. We also spoke about the general levels of passenger experience in the air and some of the difficulties that airlines are experiencing trying to satisfy their ever-demanding clients. I began by asking Michele where she thought the main areas were that the airlines needed to improve and focus on.
I think it's an interesting time for passengers, particularly on the economy side. They're getting more and more squeezed in terms of room, having to pay for extras, but then conversely they're getting cheap fares, so you can't kind of have your cake and eat it. In terms of business class, I actually think it's a good time. There's a lot more new business class seats coming out. There's the Qatar Q suites have just come out. Business class is getting better and better. And at the moment, the fares aren't actually rising to accommodate that, which is a good time. But I think ultimately, in the long term, that will change.
We've had a lot of comments during these interviews that I've been doing about British Airways, especially in the economy section. Have you experienced any of that recently?
Yes, I have. I've flown on British Airways a couple of times in economy since the change came in, and actually a couple of times, well, more than a couple of times in Club Europe, where they've actually done the opposite and improved it in general. In economy, I personally think they've made a big mistake in their strategy. I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to compete with EasyJet and Ryanair, but personally, I think they should have tried to be a bit different. It's interesting, everyone you speak to says about the food, they don't actually really care about food, and BA had identified that correctly, but unfortunately they then went the step too far and took away the free drinks as well. One of my favourite low-cost airlines is actually in America. It's called Southwest, and to me they've got the perfect model. You pay a reasonably cheap fare. It's not as cheap as sort of the equivalent of Ryanair, but you get a free soft drink, you get a packet of nuts or crisps, and you get 2 free bags as well. That, to me, would make me always fly with them over someone that was a little bit cheaper because it's a more pleasant experience. And that was the niche I think BA should have gone for, and I just think they've missed the mark completely. Be interesting to see if it affects their figures long term.
Yeah, I think the whole strategy is flawed myself, because at least with Southwest and other airlines you've mentioned as well in the past, you know what you're getting before you get on, and you can't really complain about it because the service is exactly as they say that it's going to be. But BA has been extremely variable recently, I have to say.
I find that the cabin crew are definitely variable. They have 2 fleets. They've got the legacy fleet, and they've also got the newer crew that obviously have been in the news recently with the strikes. And I find there's a very variable service, and I think they need to do something about that. You never quite know what you're going to get. Sometimes they're absolutely fantastic, and other times they really just don't want to be there. Well, that's how it seems anyway.
Have you flown on any of the Qatar flights that have been replacing some of the BA fleets in the last few weeks at all?
Unfortunately not, actually, because I was kind of hoping that would happen. But speaking to a few people that have, they've actually said it's substantially better. There's more legroom, and they're interesting. They are actually doing catering in economy on them, which I think is kind of a mistake for BA, because it's confusing what's going on, and then people don't know next time, am I going to get it, aren't I going to get it? So I think they should have really just stuck to what they're doing if that's the long-term plan.
Yeah, and let's see what happens with the rest of this crew business, because I think if they have any more strikes this year, again, that's going to be very damaging for them, isn't it?
I think it is, although it's not actually affecting passengers that greatly. There have been cancellations and aircraft swaps, but I think it's more the negative PR, because there just seems to be a constant stream of it against BA at the moment. Some of it warranted, but not all of it. I don't know if you saw the story recently about the cup of tea, which I just thought we're scraping to new levels here in the Daily Mail, when somebody having to pay extra for 2 tea bags is a headline news story.
Yeah, it must have been. It's the silly season. It's August, so it's going to be a bit quiet, isn't it, in the press? But nonetheless, I think that was just literally a step too far, wasn't it?
That was my favourite story, I think.
What about alcohol? There's been a lot in the press in the last couple of weeks about the whole alcohol business at the airport and on the aircraft. What's your opinion about it?
I think it's actually a real shame that there's a small minority of people that abuse it, that are potentially going to spoil it for everyone else. So I do travel a lot in business and sometimes first class. I like a nice glass of champagne on the plane and maybe a couple of glasses of wine, but it's the people that spoil it for everyone by drinking too much. You know, they're there at 6 a.m. on the stag night drinking pints of beer, and somehow we need to control that element without spoiling it for everybody. I think a good example is I a few years ago was behind somebody who was blatantly drunk, getting on an aircraft, was sort of almost staggering down the aisle. I spoke to the cabin crew and they did absolutely nothing about it.
Gosh.
And that's what worries me, is that the people that work in the airports, at the bars, the cabin crew, the gate staff, don't tackle it early enough. Because they don't want to confront a passenger, and then that's what leads to the issues on board, and then you've got to divert a flight, potentially calling the police. It all gets very unpleasant very quickly.
I really don't know what the answer is. I've thought about this very carefully over the last couple of months, and as I go to some of these regional airports occasionally, quite early in the morning, I am staggered by the amount of drink that's going on, even before they get on the plane. And it's the usual people all the time, isn't it?
It is, and I think the worry is if they try and control it, how is that going to affect people that perhaps are going into the lounges? You might have a special occasion, perhaps you're going on a honeymoon, you go in the lounge, you want to have a Bucks visit breakfast time, but you're not someone who's going to, start kicking off at 36,000 feet. We don't want to spoil the experience for those sort of people, but somehow we need to control the element that just take it too far.
Right, let's talk about ultra long haul flying. Qantas are starting a service in March of next year on the Dreamliner from Perth to London directly, not stopping off in Hong Kong, Singapore or any of those places, Dubai, for example. What do you think about that kind of service? Would that appeal to you?
Definitely not. I think it's just too long. I actually quite like long flights, rather unusually. About 12 hours on a long haul is perfect for me, in business class, not economy. You've got time to get on, have your meal, watch a film, and then you can get a good sort of 6 or 7 hours sleep before it's time to have another meal and get off feeling good. I find shorter flights, sort of 7 or 8 hours, you never really get enough sleep. Whereas I think when you're getting to sort of 16, 17 hours or longer, that's just a step too far. I have done one not quite as long as that, but I've done one to New Zealand and Australia that were maybe like 13 hours. I think 13 and a half from Doha to, I can't remember if it was Australia or New Zealand. And I also did one, unfortunately, where we diverted on the way to New Zealand. We diverted into Fiji that ended up being about 15 and a half hours. And it felt a very, very long time. So I can understand from probably an economical point of view they want to do it. But personally, I quite like stopping off somewhere and, going and seeing something different.
Inevitably, we're going to end up with the 22 or 23-hour flight as we get better aircraft performance in terms of engines and efficiency. So there will be, one of these days, flights from Melbourne and Sydney to London. I think that's going to be unbearable. What do you think?
I agree with you, definitely. It's interesting because Qantas have actually been saying recently very publicly that they are looking at longer flights, but will the public actually want to do it? I think in economy that would just be completely unbearable and not particularly healthy. The risks of DVT from sitting in a seat for 22 hours or longer has got to be increased. Even in business class, I really would not want to do it, not unless they did something to improve the onboard experience, that you could actually get up and not be sitting for that amount of time.
I wonder what the economy class fare would be from Perth to London from Qantas. What do you think?
I would expect it to be similar to a normal economy fare. I don't think there'll be a lot of difference. Unfortunately, Perth, there's not a huge amount of competition, so it tends to be very expensive, whereas somewhere like Sydney, you've got competition from a lot of the Chinese carriers, so they tend to keep the prices a bit lower. So I think it'll be just the standard rate. I think there's definitely a bit of collusion that goes on between the airlines because they all seem to charge almost identical rates, having been to Perth and struggled to get a decent fare.
So what about the future of the passenger experience? What's the next thing that we're going to be offered, do you think?
Well, I think there's a few things. I think it's going to be very polarised, even more than now, between economy and business class. If you look at what they're doing in economy, it's all about unbundling things, making the seats packed in tighter, going more abreast on the newer aircraft. So I think as an economy passenger, you're probably going to continue to see low fares, but it's not going to be a pleasant experience. Whereas the opposite end, business class, is getting better and better. I think we'll see probably the end of first class on a lot of airlines, or at least very limited first class. If you look at Qatar and their new Q suites in business class, it's pretty much what you'd expect in first class. In fact, some might say it's even better than British Airways first class. You get your own suite with a door. So it will be very, very different for business and economy passengers, which is all the more reason to try and get a good deal and see if you can afford that business class flight after all. The other thing I think will be important is technology. So there's a very interesting trial on Air France at the moment for virtual reality, where they've actually purchased a number of virtual reality headsets that they're using. I think it's to St Martin in the Caribbean in business class. It's a very innovative company that have developed them for onboard use because they're actually very lightweight. They weigh, I think, less than 200 grams. If you think about the future, how much does an in-flight entertainment box weigh? And how much does it cost? Whereas I think the VR glasses are getting cheaper and cheaper, so we could see that in the future as being on every aircraft, which would be interesting. Though you do look kind of stupid.
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, I hadn't thought about that. And the general, the in-flight entertainment systems, as you say, there's a big weight penalty associated with them. And people are bringing their own devices now anyway. So this would be a really interesting step forward, I think.
I think it will go probably one of two ways. It will either go something like the virtual reality, which I reckon will be at the premium end, potentially. I think at the economy end, they're more likely to do streaming. There's a couple of airlines that are already experimenting with you bring your own tablet and they supply the other content. But obviously you need good Wi-Fi, and a lot of the airlines that jumped on board early, their Wi-Fi is not good enough to actually support that. Whereas that's one thing you can say about British Airways, because they've delayed it for so long, they've actually got the latest technology and they will be capable of streaming things. So it'd be interesting to see if they go down that route.
We'll have to see. Thanks ever so much indeed for talking to us today, Michelle. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Find this and other great shows at the Aviation Media Network.
TheVoicesInYourHead.com.
The Plane Talking UK podcast is a voluntary project that aims to keep you informed with the latest aviation-related stories from newswires across the globe.
Producing our content does cost money though. If you enjoy our show, why not help us keep on the air by making a donation towards the server and website hosting fees through PayPal. Any contributions would be greatly appreciated.
Are you an Amazon user? If so, why not do your shopping through the link on our website? There's no cost to yourself, and Amazon pay us a small referral fee on qualifying purchases.
To find out more about the show and to meet the team, take yourself to our website www.planetalkinguk.com,
or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/planetalkinguk, on Twitter via @planetalkinguk, or get in touch via email on podcast@planetalkinguk.com. Thanks for listening.
Flybe 5823, Trent Dane for 23 Manchester, Wizz Air 6X, climb flight level 210, direct to Bretlands Park. United 123, maintain 280 knots. London 2TME, turn right onto Bravo, link 21 join Alpha, hold at Mora, Speedbird 472, LOC/TME, approach runway 27 left. Follow the green stand 544.
That's enough air traffic control for today, Nat. Bedtime.
Have you ever wondered what it would be like to fly a commercial passenger jet? Looked up at the sky and thought, I wish that was me? Well, now anyone has the chance to have a go at flying in a real aircraft simulator. NP Simulations and Flight Experience London, the only official Boeing licensed product of its kind in the UK, offer you the chance to fly anywhere in the world in their fixed-base Boeing 737-800 flight simulator. And that's not all. Ground School London offers many different courses for the up-and-coming pilot looking for a start in aviation. With prices starting at just £109, the sky's the limit. So for the ultimate flight simulator experience, or engaging preparatory courses, including those for schools and colleges, check out the websites at www.london.flightexperience.co.uk and www.groundsschoollondon.com, or call on 020 300 40 616. NP Simulations. Fly your dreams.
Well, a big thanks to Nev, as always, for sending in his segment for this week.
Gosh, he did not make her work hard. 2 segments in one sitting. I mean, how mean?
He's a slave driver, that Neville Bones.
He is, indeed.
I'd imagine by now Neville is quite well lubricated by
he'll be a perfect
alcohol.
gentleman. No. He'll be a perfect gentleman at all times.
I bet he will.
Indeed.
And I do love that ad. Our NP ad is very good.
Yeah. It is all right, isn't it?
I do. I do like that one.
Indeed. It's got funky tunes and everything.
I know. Well done. So, we are going to move on to the last segment for the show then. Our military segment. We haven't had one for a while, but we like to keep Mr. Warner happy.
We do, every now and again, yes.
And the first story is blinking interesting.
It is indeed, absolutely.
So if you're ready, we're going to start with some military news. So the first news story then for this segment, it's on the popularmechanics.com website.
As you do.
And I mean,
I do wonder where you go for these
Matt's got the video for this, but the story is, the headline is Russian bomber bungles takeoff and loses wing. So a Russian heavy bomber was badly damaged when it aborted its takeoff and ran out of runway before it came to a full stop. The Tu-22 M3 backfire bomber was taking part in a controversial military exercise that has rattled Russia's neighbours. There was no reported injuries among the 4-man crew. The Tu-22 M3 bomber, part of the Russian Air Force's 52nd Guards Heavy Bomber Aviation Regiment at Shayakovka, Russia, was taking part in the Zapad West 2017 military exercises, according to the website. A speed sensor on board the aircraft failed and the crew decided to abort a takeoff. The crew slammed on the speed brakes and popped the parachute designed to slow the 200,000-pound bomber, but that wasn't enough to bring the Tu-22 M3 to a halt, and it continued into a field at the far end of the runway, as those of you guys watching on YouTube can see in the video now.
And there goes the wing.
There goes the wing.
Oh, wow.
And some soil and
yes,
stuff.
and a lot of mess, yes. And a big bill.
So, if you take yourself over to something called Shayakokova in Google Maps, you can not only see where the plane landed, well, technically where it didn't take off, but also other Tu-23M3 sitting in revments on the airfield. The Russian Air Force flies approximately 80 backfires of 1980 era aircraft inherited from the Soviet Union. The backfire was a major threat to US Navy aircraft carriers during the Cold War. It was meant to carry 2 large Kh-22 AS-4 Kitchen anti-ship missiles and launch them in waves at US naval task forces. Like its contemporary and potential Cold War adversary, the Grumman F-4 Tomcat, the backfire was a swing wing design that allows it to sweep its wings back for speed or forward for more efficient operation at lower speeds. The backfire could fly with wings forward as it neared enemy task forces with its load of missiles and sweep its wings back after launching them for a burst of speed. The crash tore off the bomber's right wing and caused unknown other damage. The landing gear is almost certainly wrecked as well. The bomber may be unrepairable, but it's not as big a deal as it sounds. The Soviet Union built 514 backfires in its heyday, and another 60 bombers are in storage that could be brought back into operational status. Well, I mean, you saw from the video there, that was
quite a mess.
Quite a mess,
Yeah,
I think. I think the speed sensor definitely did fail on that particular flight. But I would imagine Mr. Warner is probably...
he did actually say in the chat room he'd already seen that one and was sort of quietly chortling to himself, I think, throughout.
Actually, they're all asking Captain Nick in the chat room whether he's ever intercepted one of these. Because obviously Nick used to fly for the Royal Air Force.
Okay, yes.
So,
I'm terrified almost to hear what the answer would be, but...
So moving on,
yes, indeed.
to the next story.
On to the next story. This is on a slightly unusual website.
Bit of a posh one.
It is indeed. It is
Smith?
It is on the Oxford
It's a bit royal.
Mail. It's the Oxford Mail, and the reason behind it is because Princess Anne makes visits to RAF Bryce Norton to celebrate 100 years of 99. Squadron. An RAF squadron that never sleeps celebrated its centenary with a visit from Princess Anne. Airmen and women, officers and veterans came together at RAF Bryce Norton this morning to celebrate 100 years since the formulation of 99 Squadron. The squadron took part in the bombing raids during the First and Second World Wars, but remains just as relevant today, recently providing vital support in the Caribbean following the devastation of Hurricane Irma. Officer Commanding Wing Commander Mark Holland said that 99 Squadron operates the C-17 Globemaster. Its role is long-range heavy lifting capability for the RAF, and it operates 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We support every major defence exercise and operation and hold short notice aeromedical evacuation cover. It's a great privilege to commend any squadron, but a particular honour to commend 99 Squadron on its 100th year. The visit from the Princess Royal gives the event the gravitas it deserves. It's good for those in the squadron to feel that recognition for their hard-earned efforts, and the squadron doesn't sleep. The Princess Royal arrived at the base and inspected the squadron before speaking about its significant contribution to Britain's armed forces over the past century. She said that she was delighted to help celebrate the centenary, adding 99 Squadron has a reputation for always achieving what is asked of it, despite great adversity. The Princess said that she hoped the squadron would continue serving on the front line of military operations for another 100 years. 99 Squadron was formed in Wiltshire on August 15th, 1917, preceding the formation of the Royal Air Force by several months, and immediately began working up to becoming a bomber squadron. It served in bombing raids during both World Wars, but its role has changed substantially over the years. Now, 99 Squadron transports service people, vehicles and freight all over the world to support British forces. Wing Commander Holland said that while the squadron's role has changed, its focus on long-range missions has remained the same. It also provides humanitarian support in response to natural disasters, most recently helping with the British response to the Caribbean after Hurricane Irma wreaked havoc on the British Virgin Islands. Air Load Master Peter Wicks, who serves in the squadron, said of the recent response, part of the squadron was put on high alert and there was a concerted effort to, on behalf of the whole station, to get what people needed out to the British territories. It just proves that no matter what is going on, the squadron is always working. A very nice story there.
Yeah, it's one of those particular sites that I'd love to visit, Bryce
Norton.
Never had the chance to go there, but I really love to go there. Obviously, Mark, you've been there. So you know you know all about the place.
Yeah, it's impressive seeing all of those large cargo planes on the pan there, all parked up.
Yeah, I bet it's one of the, it's one of those things. I mean, any working military base is always a fascinating.
Mr. Warner's dream, I think.
Well, that is true. So we'll move on to the last story, and we'll put that in your capable hands, if we may, please, Mark.
Yep, certainly. It's the bbc.co.uk website, and the USAF move out of Mildenhall delayed by 2 years.
Oh, very good news.
The relocation of an American airbase out of the UK has been delayed by 2 years, the United States Air Force has said. The 100th Refuelling Wing at Royal Air Force Mildenhall, Suffolk, is due to move to Ramstein Air Base in Germany. The USAF has said the relocation has been stalled due to continuing discussions between officials from the United States and Germany. The move is part of a programme to save £320 million or $500 million a year across Europe. Master Sergeant Alex Griffin, a spokesman for the USAF, said the process of moving personnel and assets from RAF Mildenhall to bases in Germany has been delayed by 24 months because of discussions between the United States and Germany pertaining to programme management, procedures and responsibilities. The USAF is also due to leave RAF Alconbury and RAF Molesworth in Cambridgeshire. The moves have been delayed until 2024, the USAF have said. RAF Mildenhall is used as a transport hub by the United States Air Force and is home to the KC-135 tanker fleet and Special Operations Forces. It has about 3,200 military personnel, with 400 to 500 UK civilian staff employed there. West Suffolk MP Matthew Hancock said the delay would give more time for the area to prepare for the Americans' departure. We in West Suffolk are proud to host the United States Air Force, who do such important work in defending our shared values and interests, he said. This delay will give yet more time to prepare for any US departure, and we must prepare for all eventualities. RAF Alconbury and RAF Molesworth are used as USAF communications bases rather than for flying. Their operations are moving to RAF Crowton in Northamptonshire.
I must admit, I've just put the picture up, as you can probably see if you're watching on YouTube.
The Osprey.
I love the Osprey. That is the most one of the most amazing. I'm still not sure. Technically, I suppose it is a helicopter, so perhaps I should be less interested in it. But it is a stunning piece of technology.
Mildenhall is such a huge part of Suffolk.
It is.
You know, it would be a massive loss to the community, I think, if they did move when they do move, eventually do move out of there, because I'd imagine it does bring quite a lot of trade as such to the general area. And also, not forgetting as well, Mildenhall has quite a long runway as well. Just talking to Nick in the chat room, because Mildenhall does have a runway length of 9,219 feet.
Wow.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Mildenhall eventually once that does close down.
Do you think they might turn it into a civil airport?
There's been talks about that for so many years now, as to what would happen to Mildenhall once it closes, and I think it would be a bit of a shame if something didn't continue there to do with aviation.
See, I've got a fellow fan, Jen Niffer. She loves the Osprey too. She was saying that she said there's a hybrid, saw them fly into my airport a couple of months ago. So cool, love the Osprey. I completely agree. Ladies and gents, I'm afraid it is time to wrap up the show. Have we got anything else left in the show notes before I get told off?
We have, certainly, yeah. So for those of you who listen to the Airline Pilot Guys show,
which is everyone
in the world, including my mum,
indeed.
We've got actually one of the hosts in the chat room.
We do, indeed.
Nick,
the legend that is Sir Captain of Nick.
Yeah, so apparently, according to Mr. Nick there, Captain Nick, there's a meetup going ahead. And there's an APG meetup that's going ahead at Goodwood Aerodrome.
Yes, and we're hoping to make it ourselves.
And the meetup is going to be on the 29th of October at 2 p.m. That's 1400 hours if you want to be posh. So that's on Sunday the 29th of October. And I mean, for me and Matt, that's about a 3.5 hour drive.
That's
but
fine.
We don't care.
We don't care. It's worth it just to go and grab a beer with Captain
I know.
Nick,
We're going to try and make it to that meetup. And it's being organised by Reuben Wells, and his details are available through APG on Facebook and Twitter and Slack as well. Okay. So if you want to check out on there, the details are on there, and hopefully some of our listeners in the UK can make it down to Goodwood, to the aerodrome there, and we're going to have a good old fashioned knees up,
absolutely. So just before we bring the show to a close, then
Nick's got a question.
Yeah, no, I've got one more question that
for Mark.
Nick has asked. This is one especially for you, Mark. Now I don't know if you are giving away company secrets by answering this one, so we won't be at all offended if you can't. But the legend that is Captain Nick is asking, could you please ask Mark, what is your preferred shutter speed for getting the propeller shot? So what's your preferred shutter speed for prop aircraft or helicopters?
I did actually see his question in the chat room. I was trying to reply to it, but talking made it impossible to type at the same time.
No, that's fair enough. Yes, yeah.
I tend to use 250th of a second to start with for propeller planes to try and get at least a shot of the plane that's going to be relatively sharp with a little bit of blur in the propeller. And then I will reduce the shutter speed as much as I can, down to 125th or down to a 60th if I can, to try and get more blur in the prop and hopefully even a full disc. But you're more and more likely to get camera shake at those speeds. So that's where having the digital files is so much an advantage. You can take lots and lots of photos and throw away the ones with the blur and keep the ones that are sharp.
That is true.
Helicopters are far more difficult because the rotors have a slower speed, so you're starting at probably 125th of a second to get any motion blur in the rotors at all. So you have to be hand-holding fairly steadily.
Yes, indeed. In fact, actually, Nick's just said that in the chat room. He said, steady hands with a long lens. Much respect, Mark. So there you are. You see that in praise indeed.
Yeah. And also image stabilization on the lens does help.
I've got that times 2.
Yeah,
on my
Sigma
lens.
And also, actually, Jonathan Warner is saying here also depends on prop speed, i.e. turbo props on or pistons. Turbo props spin much faster, so you can get away with a bit higher shutter speed. So it's I'll tell you what, maybe we should stop doing aviation related ones and we should do photography based ones, because there's some great detail coming out in the chat room here. Perhaps we should print this off, but I'm afraid
we'll just get Mark and Jonathan Warner and Dan to do their own
podcast. Yeah, I'll come and do the engineering. It'll be fine. I'll tie them all together. It'll be fine. But guys, it is where we've got to wrap the show up, I'm afraid, because otherwise we're going to be nearly as long as APG was earlier. So it is time to bring the show to a close. Mark, thank you so very, very much for joining us tonight. Give us another a quick plug of your marvellous website, please.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me. It's been a real blast. I really enjoyed it. My website is at leadingedgephotography.co.uk, and I'm on Twitter as at leadingedgepics, PICS, and I'm on Facebook as facebook.com/leadingedgephotography.
Fantastic. And if you haven't done so already, as I say, on his website, he's got a great function that is known as the monthly wallpaper, and the October monthly wallpaper is looking absolutely stunning. It's of a nice...
I was going to say, can you get a TriStar?
Is that a Eurocopter? Is that a Eurocopter?
That's a Gazelle, that one.
Oh, it's in the Gazelle.
That's a Gazelle,
right.
yeah.
But,
it's the Gazelle. After I'd spoken to the Gazelle Squadron at Bryce Norton, I thought it appropriate, especially as I knew I was going to be coming on here, to put up a Gazelle as it arrived into Coldrose a couple of years ago.
Fantastic. If you want to get in touch with our show, obviously you can do it by the usual means. It is www.planetalkinguk.com. It's facebook.com/planetalkinguk for your Facebook, and our Twitter handle is @planetalkinguk. Please, we do love to get your audio feedback.
Yes,
so
we do.
Please send it to us at podcast@planetalkinguk.com.
Oh, and a t-shirt.
That is podcast@planetalkinguk.com. Don't forget our t-shirts are still available.
They
if you'd
are,
like to
very
get
much
your
so.
hands on the t-shirt, they're great quality. Anybody who's got them will be able to vouch for the quality of these t-shirts. They're quality Fruit of the Loom t-shirts with an embroidered logo on the front and then a screen print on the back. If you haven't got one already, take yourselves to planetalking.com/store, and that's where planetalkinguk.com/store. I'm very tired.
He's very tired, bless him.
I'm flagging.
And also, in case anyone has been hiding, as Matt would say, under a rock for the last year,
yes.
Don't forget there are still 4 places left? Is it 3 or 4?
Yeah, absolutely. They're going very fast.
Yeah, 3 or 4 places left for our 200th show in January. That's on the 20th of January next year. If you want to be there, get your name sent in to us via the email, and you too can
come
fly
and join us.
Boeing 737-800.
Yeah, absolutely, on our fixed wing simulator day at
NP Simulations,
which coincides with our 200th episode. On the subject of special events, let's not forget, of course, that APG 300 is coming.
Ooh. I have to add an effect to that.
APG 300 is coming. And that's where we bring episode 184 to a close. From all of us here in the studio, say goodbye, Mark.
Goodbye, and thank you.
Absolute pleasure. And from all of us here in the studio, it is
great
time to
weekend,
say
everyone.
goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye. Woohoo.